OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, you're very welcome along. It's Monday morning, it's Cherno, and we're here with you all the way through until 10. The dream team reassembles, Owen. That's what they told me.
Who told you that?
Well, the YouTube commenter who says, no Gilroy, no party. He's my guy.
He definitely does always say that on a Friday morning. And I'm just waiting for the moment that he accidentally logs into the wrong account and at your Gilroy and the YouTube comment says, no Gilroy, no party.
Well, that would be quite the turn-up for the books, wouldn't it? Wag of the Christie here. We might talk a little bit about that later on. We probably won't today because there wasn't that much happening over the course of the weekend. Just a lot of very misogynistic comment in the newspapers. And yet it is the trial of the century, so I'm no doubt we'll return to it tomorrow. You've been gallivanting. You were in all the way in Croke Park yesterday, and you were in the Tottenham Stadium. How would you compare and contrast? Which is the most beautiful edifice?
Oh, well, Croke Park, obviously. Croke Park with its...
mile of cheese.
With its mile of cheese. No, like I still think that there's the beauty of Croke Park is when it's full, and like people kind of complain about Croke Park when it's used for the wrong reasons, and it was definitely kind of brought up in the build-up to yesterday's game, wasn't it? The idea that these Leinster semi-finals were taking place there. I've definitely seen worse Croke Park atmospheres, and it's become a bit of a pattern where we're kind of used to it. And like, there's no better place when it's absolutely full. But
the two times a year that happens, great, yeah.
Yeah, it's and maybe to a certain extent, actually the fact that some of these games do take place in Croke Park it just doesn't help maybe the product that we're seeing or the way we look at the Leinster Championship in particular. But I still love Croke Park. I still think it's the big day out in Dublin for fans. I think people do enjoy that. I accept it probably would have been better somewhere else yesterday though.
Oh, definitely. I think that it was a shocking decision, and I don't know why they wrote back on the decision that they were talking about previously, where taking the games out was, they were all up for that. It's kind of one of those promises. Definitely we can do that. Then we're not doing that. That would be ridiculous. I'd love to see the maths on it, just to see how much extra they think they made as a result of that, or what the thinking behind it is, and why do they do it? It just doesn't make any sense that you could have had rip-roaring atmosphere, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you could give it home and away so that Meath get a game in Navan. And would the game in Navan have been any different? It probably wouldn't have, but it might have been a bit more entertaining for the first 40 minutes. We might have got 40 minutes out of it instead of 10 minutes, which is what we got yesterday. So
yeah, it was like with 38,000 people in there, like you could do a Kildare doubleheader with the 20s on Saturday even, and that way you could have put 22,000 people into O'Moore Park if it was available. I'm not even sure if it was, but one of those sort of stadiums in the early 20s, which probably would have been enough. Would have been a little bit unfair in Westmeath, obviously, having to go up against Kildare support that also has an under-20 game, but I think they'd probably get over that. There was ways around this. Like 38,000 is not the worst crowd whatsoever in Croke Park, and maybe there was this sense that after what happened last year, the Leinster Championship was back. I think we saw yesterday that it's not back.
It's still dead. Still dead.
It's like the opposite of the. Just when you think you're out,
they pull you back in.
They pull you back in. It's just when you think you're back in, they push you back out. That's my takeaway from yesterday.
All right. It's 7:33 this morning. If you want to get in touch, the hashtag is OTB AM, at Off The Ball AM on Twitter. You can text us, 0879 180 180 is the number. You can text us if you want, old school text. Very few people do that, but occasionally we get a WhatsApp to that one, and that would be grand. Or, of course, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. But at 7:34, it's time for the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Where do we begin?
We begin in the red, as we do every single Monday morning here on OTB AM on our performance rankings, and we will progress through to the green. We're starting off this morning with Waterford, who are at the bottom after a plot twist, I think it's fair to say, on their season. They were looking like the team that could topple Limerick at the start of this year's championship after what they did in the league. Even early in the championship, when they got that draw against Limerick, the question was, marker laid down, how realistic will that be when these two sides inevitably meet in the Munster final and then again potentially in the All-Ireland final? The beginning of the trilogy is what we thought it was with Waterford and Limerick. And what makes yesterday's setback worse is that I think we all kind of want Waterford to succeed, right? I don't think this is like a Mayo situation where you've got people out there who don't want Mayo to succeed.
What?
I mean, it's
What?
some people. I think everybody.
Say that again. There are people who don't want Mayo to succeed. Who are these people, Owen?
I think there's a lot of people who get a lot of joy out of Mayo not winning, but it's...
Are you one of those people?
No, I've gone
people?
to the bright side after being on the dark side for so long.
Right. Okay.
But
Sorry,
it feels like Waterford would be the most warmly received Gaelic games drought story ending. Let's play it that way. So I don't think anybody's overly happy to see Waterford's malaise over the last couple of weeks happening, and that's what it is. And it's out of their hands now for them to even get out of Munster. It's like the same story as the last couple of round robins we've seen. Liam Cahill afterwards was fuming. We weren't good enough, simple as. We hurled like a car on dirty petrol, just chugging along. Just not acceptable to the big Waterford support that came here. Terribly, bitterly disappointing. He also said, when the questions were really asked around the cut and thrust of Championship hurling, we were more or less looking to the officials and out to the line rather than what was going on between the lines. That's a pretty damning statement of his team.
It's very damning, and it's very damning in that here was a home game where it was a team who they had just 5 or 6 weeks ago really done what you were supposed to do in that circumstance, not give a sucker an even break. They completely obliterated Cork in the league final and put Cork back to the point where we thought that maybe this entire thing was going to break up, where we've had Cork pundits in studio and on air, and you can only imagine what they're saying in Cork off air when it's not being broadcast about the Cork hurlers, and they put Cork put in a brilliant performance yesterday, so we should definitely give them credit for that. It was physical, it was well thought out, it was brilliantly executed. It was clear that the stuff that they wanted to do they were being allowed to do. But Waterford again had Austin Gleeson sent off where he was already in a booking and got sucked into a row. Now, he defended himself in the row, and I have a lot of sympathy with the fact that he did defend himself in that. And Gerard Hegarty also, it seems, responded a little bit to the shithousing that he was being subjected to. But, like, come on, lads. Every brilliant key forward, every marquee GAA player in the country has to put up with this stuff. And you either put up with it and you're still on the field when the game is in the melting pot, or you don't put up with it and you get sent off, because at the moment the referees are not smart enough to cotton on to what's happening, and we have this culture in GAA where the lippy guy gets away with being lippy, and in some ways is kind of a bit of a hero. So until that gets sorted out, the rules of engagement are that you can't respond, and when you do respond you get sent off. And Waterford played quite well in patches, so 15 on 15 for the last 5 minutes, 8 minutes of the game, would that have changed things? Maybe it would. It's really hard to know. It did feel like that Cork bounce back performance the last couple of years was all coming down the stretch, and they responded in kind, and they've blown that competition wide open now. You know, it's very hard to know what's going to happen. The fact that the other game was a draw and Clare through to the final, what does that mean? Did they rest their team?
Well, it definitely gives Waterford a good opportunity. Cork are the team coming up against a team with something still to play for. Like Tipperary are back in the mix all of a sudden. And that game's on in Semple this Sunday. Those games clash, by the way, with the final day of the Premier League for anybody who's looking to, earmark how their weekend's actually going to play out this weekend. Those final Munster games both taking place at 4 o'clock this Sunday. You'd have to say that on paper Waterford have the tougher fixture, but there's more on the line for Tipperary. So this thing is not done yet. And maybe this is the sort of path that Waterford need to take to get out of this group if they manage to pull it off on Sunday, this sort of humbling experience that they've had to go through. But I guess Austin Gleeson with 2 red cards in essentially 4 games now in all competitions, that's definitely a bit of concern for Liam Cahill.
I think if you're Clare, you play a B team this week.
Well, why not?
And as a result, I think Waterford are actually going to go through.
Well, the thing is, Cork could just go and win in Semple Stadium, and it doesn't matter what Waterford do. It's very hard to know what sort of tip challenge Cork are going to face. You'd suspect it'll be a tougher one than Waterford will face against Clare, motivationally anyway. I can see why you'd say that about Clare, and
it's just the right thing to do. Rest everybody. Give yourselves a week's rest. You've got a Munster final coming up where you didn't think you were going to be, or you didn't feel this year was going to be the year where you catch Limerick, and all of a sudden you're right there with them.
Yeah, you do have a week off after that anyway, So like you've got 2 down weekends. So if you rest your team now, Clare have 2 weekends off before.
Yeah, but
the Munster
imagine
final
somebody gets
against
injured in
Limerick.
that game, the meaningless game.
Yeah, no, I get that, and you don't want to get injured. Like just resting everybody though. Like these are like good tune-ups for later in the season as well, and like that's a very, very good team that Clare will be coming up against this weekend. Look, it's like it doesn't matter. I think that even if Clare were playing a full team, there would still be the thing in the back of their head where they're like, whatever we do today against Waterford, we are going to be out on the 5th of June against Limerick one way or another. So I think that motivational thing in the back of the head, you'd be favouring Waterford slightly. Again, it's just down to what Cork will do, and maybe Cork are the sort of county where if things are going bad, things are going very bad, but if things start to go good, they start to go very, very good.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of
rebirth.
One big game, and could exactly could be the rebirth of this team. I'm not sure if I'm rushing to that conclusion just yet. I think what we've actually seen are some very high highs and very low lows for them recently, which for any other team in the country, or for the most other teams in the country, we would say is actually just inconsistency. But Cork, we tend to read into this a little bit too much and say it's Cork. They have an ability to, go on this massive run. I'll see it when I believe it, and it'll be great to see Cork in the business end of the championship this year because they're a hell of a story.
Yeah, and they were doing both in the game yesterday. There were periods where Waterford were like, oh, absolutely brilliant, and then it was like, wow, look at this. Where was this Cork for the last 15 years? Dave Cos says Dave Cos says Waterford, the Mayo of hurling. We haven't even talked about Wexford yet. Wexford should really be in the red, or Westmeath should be in the green.
Yeah.
Maybe Westmeath should have been in the green. Mark Dunning says, best for Clare to avoid any injuries or suspensions by picking a second string team. I would tend to agree. Like, this whole thing about the integrity of the competition is if you've already qualified, then you're entitled to do what you want.
Oh, totally.
They're the rules. We don't make the rules. The rules are made somewhere else. And, the round robins are amazing, but then there's always dead rubbers. And dead rubbers? What? Dead rubbers? How many of the games are dead rubbers?
Yeah, no, like that's not about the integrity of the competition whatsoever. I'm just thinking from Clare's perspective, just with a week off anyway afterwards, because they just used this as a kind of like last game before limbering up for a challenge against Limerick. But like Clare Limerick in a Munster final as well, after what we saw yesterday, I wonder is yesterday actually the real sort of marker from Clare in that maybe the Munster final isn't. I think, for Clare the Munster final would be something that they will obviously be really going after, and they would love to win that trophy. For Limerick it maybe has less importance, but then again, after being set back a little bit yesterday, maybe
it's a weird psychological thing, isn't it? Paul Murphy was talking on the football pod about the hurling pod, obviously not the football pod, about 2013, and when they were beaten by the Dubs, they spent like ages trying to psychologically repair from that, and they couldn't that season.
Yeah.
So these we think of these as like they'll just swat it away or men in black it, and it's very difficult to do that. So right.
Yeah, just one quick word, as you say, on Westmeath there. That's like a brilliant result at the weekend. It's kind of reminiscent of Laois beating Dublin, obviously in a knockout game that was in 2019. But it does seem every couple of years we get a result like this. And the first thing I thought when I saw that result for Westmeath was that this was a team that I'd watched play in the Joe McDonagh Cup final last year, and they'd used that to build and to get back to a place where they feel that they can take on some of the teams of Leinster, and they've done that, and they've got a result against one of the top tier teams. Not sure why that was the first thing I thought of, but this whole notion of a second tier competition in GAA, that's what you can use it for, to build momentum, to actually play at a level that suits you, to get confidence, to beat teams week in, week out, and then you'll be ready the following year to actually challenge top teams.
Is the fact that the hurling league is so divorced from the stuff that really matters, is that not something we should be talking about a bit more? Like, hurling is nearly fixed, and everybody says hurling is great, and it is better than football in terms of its structures. But why don't they just go the whole hog and have some kind of a league conference situation where, you still have these competitions, but there's some other competition where the top teams play each other, and then the best 6 go into an All-Ireland series. Isn't there a better way to do this still?
Just don't play the league. Just replace it with a kind of more.
Keep your Leinster and Munster championship, but then have a third conference, which is interconference, where everybody plays each other. Like, scrap the league, but it's championship from the get-go. Wouldn't that be better?
It could well be. Like, there's definitely a few of those kind of like cross-provincial matchups you'd like to see. Like, it's just very messy at the moment with the situation in Munster and Leinster, where Munster is just completely fenced off as this Super League almost. And obviously, if there was a Munster winner, there can only be one Munster winner from the Joe McDonagh Cup. It's very, very unfair. They'd have to go into Leinster, and Leinster is obviously just a bit weaker, considering that's where the teams are coming up and down from. So that geographical imbalance that we see in football in a more pronounced way is definitely still there in hurling as well. But the hurling league definitely seems to be
anyway. Too much good stuff for me to sideline this whole conversation on fixtures nonsense. Apologies.
Toulouse are next up. This is obviously our avenue to get into Leinster, but just on Toulouse very quickly, the Irish Times went through some of the French reaction to the defeat. I'm sure you'll feast on this, and you have been feasting on this, Ger, over the last couple of days.
Well, I mean, you're very. This is. I'm calling Munster bias bullshit. Putting them in the red. There should be a special blue section, which is top of the table, and it should be Leinster. None of this. Oh, Toulouse weren't very good, were they? Oh, they were very disappointing, weren't they? Oh, it's terrible that Toulouse didn't show up and didn't perform. Screw you, buddy. Toulouse were bloody brilliant for like 15 minutes. I mean, okay, their defence was good. They scored an outrageous, like the perfect, terrifying fear try, and Leinster were like, no big deal. We don't care. Go on, give me the reaction here. Explain why these are in the red.
A lesson in rugby that Toulouse rarely receives is the headline in Le Figaro.
Yeah.
They wrote, Leinster shines with its organisation, its style of play programmed and recited off by heart. Cold efficiency. The hard learning of the very high level continues for the golden generation of Stade Toulouse. In pain this time. Then there was also L'Equipe. Toulouse could never express themselves, always retreating because of pressure, and undoubtedly paid for the excessive energy of their quarter-final last Saturday against Munster. See, Munster did soften you up. L'Equipe said it, the most important sports publication in the world. Toulouse were only a shadow of themselves, a striking contrast with the Irish, who were aggressive on the advantage line and always perfectly positioned. And then lastly, they said, Leinster's combinations of alternating play testify to the perfect knowledge the Irish have of their game. In comparison, Toulouse's game seems telegraphed. So yes, this is like a win for Irish rugby. Let's just forget about the fact that this is a Leinster win. This is praising Ireland and the Irish rugby culture that we have in this country.
Was it
10? It's a win for everybody.
10 of the starting team that played against France in the Grand Slam decider, as it was built. Yeah, not a bad performance. Not a bad weekend's work.
Yeah, no, they're excellent. Leinster were absolutely excellent, and the deja vu conversation that we felt there was a chance we might have been having just isn't going to happen now, and that was with regards to power and whether or not Leinster would be able to handle it in the latter stage of the competition. That Toulouse pack was obviously excellent against Munster the previous week, but people who know a lot more about it than I do were saying that Leinster have fixed those issues, and that definitely came through at the weekend, and it's probably going to be something we see in the final as well because of the double whammy of Leinster being better and Will Skelton being out for La Rochelle. Well, Leinster will very much fancy their chances in that final.
I think people do forget too that it wasn't the full Leinster team at any stage. They never managed to deal off a full deck.
No Sexton last year.
No Sexton, but also Andrew Porter was on the bench. Caelan Doris didn't start. There were a few others who were out as well, and their strength and depth wasn't as good last year as it needed to be. So they fixed a lot of those issues. Their strength and depth could still do with a little bit of a boost, but at the same time they now look like a squad who are hopefully going to be able to deal with the issues that are coming their way. A big caveat to that is Tadhg Furlong. The immediate post-match is like, this doesn't look like it's season ending, so let's wait and see what comes back from that, because it's a very different scenario if Tadhg Furlong is playing and if he isn't.
Yeah, like I've kind of come to this stage as well where Tadhg Furlong just turns us all into people who love dad jokes. Like you're sitting there watching Tadhg Furlong and you're like, don't say it, and you end up tweeting, oh, Tadhg Furlong's a midfielder, Tadhg Furlong's a back, and it's like, this is like the 400th time I've made this joke because Tadhg Furlong keeps doing things like this, but it's never not funny, of course.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah, like if he's missing for the final, obviously it makes it more interesting. Leinster won't want that, but he's obviously the unreplaceable aspect of all of this. But Leo Cullen seemed pretty okay with it in the aftermath. He was like, it's nothing to be overly concerned about. We should have a fitness bulletin from Leinster, I think, this afternoon.
Good morning, lads. Are we sort of begrudging Leinster rugby as we need to be underdogs? It's other teams underachieving when Leinster were just that good, and I'm not their number one fan, but I'm Irish. Yes, Shifty, correct. Fergus Keogh says, yes, Jared, hell with poor Toulouse. Praise Leinster's brilliance. I mean, this is the mealy-mouthed performance rankings brought to you by Munster's Owen Sheehan today.
Go on, praise Leinster's brilliance there. Go on.
But they were sensational. Like,
great.
they were absolutely sensational. Brendan O'Brien on the papers yesterday made a great point about how Lancaster is kind of the de facto Ireland coach, in that he coaches the Ireland players day in, day out, and that keeping him involved in this whole setup where they have the national style, which is obviously brought to you by the brains trust of Paul O'Connell, who's there, but under Andy Farrell's guidance. And Andy Farrell's definitely been very important in giving everybody that freedom at international level to express themselves. They're bringing that back to the club. The club is like clearly one of the best coached, best run organisations in the history of Irish sports. Like, if Leo Cullen gets the CEO job and Stuart Lancaster gets the head coaching job, that's kind of a dream scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, like, I mean...
Because then you're going to have Lancaster for as long as he wants the job.
Yeah, you've got to keep these guys in the Irish system, and I think everybody's going to be okay with that one way or another, because as we see, Leinster and Ireland have such a close link up in terms of playing resources at this point as well, that even if there is no eventual gig with the IRFU, which a lot of Irish rugby fans will want, being involved with Leinster is still a pretty good contribution to Ireland as a whole.
What do you think of the Toulouse jersey? Asks Shifty Lads genuinely. Do you like these things, lads? I actually can't remember. I was too busy watching the game. You could tell me, you could ask me now what colour Toulouse are playing in. I'd be like, Leinster played in their blue. I mean, what was unusual about it?
I'm the last person going to be asking about this when it comes to... We've been through this when it comes to jerseys, when it comes to colours that teams are wearing. I'm not the guy to ask.
My kids were very interested in the pink warm-ups that Leinster had. I was like, I hadn't seen them too often in the past, but so it's the red jersey, the normal stereotypical red jersey.
The one with there's like a black stripe down the middle of it.
I don't know.
But yeah, is
good,
that are we
red,
happy?
Red versus blue, good.
Yeah,
generally.
Absolutely. Are we happy? Well, actually, red. So why didn't Chelsea wear blue on Saturday? That I did notice, that Chelsea were wearing fluorescent yellow rather than blue, and neglecting the fact that they could have been red versus blue. Are we happy there? Are we happy with, like, I mean, your...
Yeah, you're done.
No, your appraisal of Leinster's brilliance. Is there anything else you want to say? Any other...
Toulouse jerseys are very nice. I have to say, they're very nice. They're like... there's a black and white kind of Newcastle stripe down at the breastbone. And, the Peugeot sponsor with the cool lion logo. But who cares? We beat the crap out of them. Screw you, Emile Entamac, and... handsome assassin bastard DuPont. Screw you all. We killed you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very happy for you and your boys. Next up in the Amber this morning, we have Manchester City, who've given us something to think about next weekend. Like, this final day of the Premier League season is going to be pretty good, I suspect. There'll definitely be a title race on the line unless Liverpool manage to drop points midweek. But
you're channeling your inner Nathan Murphy here, are you?
Yeah, I'm going for that. I think yesterday was a significant enough moment. Like, I definitely would have been interested to see what would have happened
if Mikel Antonio decided to not be like. So, I mean, what?
I don't know what happened there. Like, I mean, he obviously takes it very quickly. He's not even close with the effort as a thing, and he looked so devastated afterwards. I don't know. That was the opportunity. Like, I think Liverpool against Southampton, with their reputation of shipping huge tallies, would have been interesting had Manchester City been beaten by 2 goals yesterday. But as it turned out, it was a draw. Fabianski keeps this thing alive. Riyad Mahrez misses a penalty again. Obviously, last season that miss against Liverpool doesn't feel too long ago. And like, it just keeps this thing going for a little while. I get the sense, listening to Manchester City players afterwards, that they're not overly worried about this. Jack Grealish laughing at the fact that it's going to be Aston Villa on the last day of the season. But what do you think? Are your boys going to gift this thing to Liverpool?
I mean, just for a moment, picture the fever dream of the Liverpool fan every night this week, getting longer and longer and longer. Early in the week it's just the first 5 minutes and it's still 0-0. But as the week goes on, somehow Steven Gerrard intervenes with some magnificence. Philip Coutinho has signed his deal. He's now a permanent Aston Villa player. Philip Coutinho, who basically set his whole thing in motion by asking for a transfer and giving Liverpool the money to sign Virgil and Alisson. It comes full circle, and the ball falls to him with 2 minutes left to go, and it's 0-0. And Philip Coutinho skies it over the bar. Oh! How did it happen? Is that the fever dream?
Possibly. That would be very, very funny. I hope that happens.
No,
as much as I want to see the drama. Like, if this...
Coutinho, 0 assists and 0 goals in the last 8 games, but they've decided they needed to sign him anyway.
The thing is, like, the Coutinho commentary would just be like Aguero in 2012.
It would be amazing.
And it would be Manchester City you get done on the final day of the season.
And a full knee slide in his suit from Stevie G. And the Villa fans kind of reluctant to celebrate because they're like, hang on a second, why? You're very excited about this. You're very, very, very... I mean, we're excited. Yay, why is he so excited? Why does this mean so much to him?
I mean,
does this mean he's going to leave if he gets really good? We're kind of trapped in this weird scenario where we want Steven Gerrard to be like good, mediocre, not good, great. Because if he's good, great, he's going to leave. But if he's good, mediocre, Liverpool won't give him the gig. It's like a kind of, don't reach your ceiling, please. Maybe your ceiling could just be like 7th, never top 6.
So you're talking about him there as if like his ceiling is very, very high, and as if like Aston Villa are like protecting this guy and is trying to keep him a secret.
Nah, did I? Was that what I said?
Well, it just seems that way.
I don't know. I mean, let's wait and see how well they do in the transfer window. We'll see.
And give him a full season, I guess. But yeah, like yesterday makes things a little bit more exciting. And we're going to have something to think about more or less that you'd expect on Sunday. Like
it's interesting that it is interesting that City blew the chance to win it, and they went 2-0 down before they woke up, and like they got a lot of help from West Ham. They got a lot of help. It was Mayo-esque from West Ham in the All Ireland final. 2 own goals really, like a penalty and a bad own goal as well. Like not one of those ones where you're like, oh, I totally understand what you're trying to do there. It's like, if you just don't touch that, you know, the only thing that you can do there, head that into your own net. So maybe don't do that. Maybe I'm being unfair on West Ham. They did very well, much better than most teams done against Man City. So I don't know.
Manchester City in the amber after that performance yesterday. In the green, we've got Dublin football and we've got Liverpool. From their relative performances over the course of the weekend. You might just like we skip on to Liverpool just since we're on this topic. Like, I mean, it's already, I suspect, without whatever happens over the next couple of weeks, one of these great seasons for Liverpool fans, one that they're not going to forget too quickly. And Saturday, you can make an argument that maybe Chelsea deserved to win it, Liverpool, and their inefficiency or their inability to create an extra time maybe is an argument for that, but I'm not sure if I necessarily buy it. It felt very similar to the Carabao Cup final, where if there was a winner throughout the match you might have thought fair enough, but come penalties and come that Sadio Mane miss, I actually did think it was going to be Chelsea who were going to win it. That Thomas Tuchel moment where he's banging the ground with his closed fist in celebratory mode, like to come back from that in the end where the Chelsea fans were, and for Diogo Jota in particular to bury that penalty, that took cojones. And obviously Tsimikas with the finishing penalty, an unlikely hero on FA Cup final day.
It obviously did. It's so in the lap of well, it's obviously not in the lap of the gods because they do all the work in the penalties, but like I presume Chelsea are doing similar work. So you know, they've kept it alive. Is it great that they managed to keep it alive, or is it a little bit concerning that the injuries are starting to pile up, and the performance wasn't great?
Well, does this come back to your point and your argument with Nathan last week about what Liverpool actually do with the available playing resources? That if Van Dijk is in the amber fitness-wise, if Fabinho's in the amber fitness-wise, if Mo Salah's in the amber fitness-wise, are you playing them against Southampton tomorrow night?
No, the league is gone. Like, I know you've put Manchester City in the amber, but like it's not like...
But it's not gone. Like, that's why they're in the amber. It's the very definition of still being alive before this weekend.
It's really not, though. Is it? Like, it's Villa at home that they have.
Yeah.
They're a 3 to 5 goal better team than Villa.
I'm literally just about to check what the odds are in this game, but are they 3 to 5? Like,
the odds will be Man City -2 is 7 to 5.
Yeah, I like it. It just makes it a little bit interesting, and the fact that Manchester City have missed an opportunity that can sometimes destabilise a team. Like, the thing is, we thought that Manchester City would be destabilised after what happened against Real Madrid, and then they went out and smashed Newcastle United that weekend, didn't they? So they seem to have an ability to forget those things quite quickly because they also
rested. Like, again, Pep no subs, which is totally weird. Very bizarre. Again, no subs, and Foden didn't start. So like,
yes, they'll have a fully fit Phil Foden to come into the team next week, and Sterling didn't get any minutes yesterday. Gundogan was on the bench, wasn't he? And he didn't actually come on. So they have pretty much a fully fit squad available to choose from, and it would of course be a shock if Aston Villa took points off them next weekend, but it just makes it interesting. It just keeps us going till the final day of the season. Liverpool at home to Wolves.
I'm not saying don't watch it, but I'm saying that if you're Liverpool and you get injuries now in these last 2 games, and then you lose the Champions League final because Mo Salah's injured, or Virgil van Dijk is injured, or Fabinho is injured, or all 3 of them are injured. If all 3 of them are gone, or there's doubts about them, how confident do you feel about them being able to beat Real Madrid in a one-off game? I don't feel particularly confident about that. The Champions League, I know they've said from an emotional perspective they want to win the league in front of their fans, and they want to have that homecoming in front of their fans, and they want to be free post-COVID to celebrate a league properly, and I get that. There may be one coming in the future because Jurgen Klopp is staying and they've loads of money, but the Champions League is right there for them, and winning another Champions League elevates them into all-time great territory. 2 Champions League in a couple of seasons, in 3 seasons, and a beaten final at the start of that run, and really a very regretful COVID 2-legged defeat. They are definitely one of the best teams in the world at the moment, and therefore one of the best teams potentially of all time. Win a second Champions League and you write your name in history. That's the put the chips in the middle of the table for the game against Real and go for it. No one will ever regret that.
They should also be able to beat Southampton without those players, so it may not necessarily be a black and white decision. And also, you're 1, 2, 3 days away from those injuries being sustained. Not in the case of Fabinho, but in the case of Van Dijk and Salah. Are those guys actually going to be available to play on Tuesday night? Probably not. So it may not be even an either or. It may be let's go for both of these. And
Wolves have literally nothing to play for on the last day of the season. So you're gonna stroll those games anyway.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just Southampton on the road. If that game was at Anfield tomorrow night, you'd be just a little bit more confident. But if they get through that Southampton game, then it's obviously very much game on in the final day of the season. And wasn't it into 2018-19 season, or was it 17-18? When there was City versus Liverpool, City did go behind, didn't they, or they conceded early on that final day of the season and made things just a little bit edgy. There was no problem in the air for them. They did end up clinching the title, but strange things can happen on the final day of the season, as Manchester City know very, very well. Finally, the Dubs, they are good at football. They are very much one of the favourites for the All-Ireland Football Championship. They are into a final, and they will have to beat the mighty Kildare to retain their title in a couple of weeks' time. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was looking it up there as well. Dublin 7-1 on.
Wow.
The spread is 6. Dublin -6 is evens. Kildare +6 is 11-10. So spread is 6. I think for the rest of the country, unfortunately, Dublin are back, and they have a level of conditioning that they appear to have this year that they didn't seem to have last year. They certainly have a purpose about them. They're playing with that anger, that chip on their shoulder that only 7-time All-Ireland champions can have, which is so weird because they have all the gifts that you need to be 7-time All-Ireland champions and still a little bit chippy and a little bit angry. So yeah, that puts the cat amongst your power rankings, doesn't it?
Not really. I pretty much said that Kerry and Dublin are the 2 best teams in the country, and I don't think we've seen anything over the last couple of weeks that have changed that. I don't understand how anybody can still cling to this notion that Dublin aren't in the top tier.
Can we just go back to the league when everybody was telling us that Dessie Farrell couldn't coach? Can we just remind everybody about, are they getting good coaching? Is this a good team? Is this team's rubbish, isn't it? They're like, I think Dessie Farrell has proved to be an excellent coach, right? He won All-Ireland the first time out. He's got exactly the same track record as Jim Gavin had at this point. He's going to go All-Ireland win, All-Ireland defeat in a semi-final, and
now 5 in a row.
I mean, I don't think they're going to do 5 in a row because I think Kerry are too good. But
this Dublin team isn't as good as the Jim Gavin team. It's possible for those things to both be true, that Dublin are still...
But isn't it also possible that Dessie might be also an excellent coach?
Very, very possible.
He did win All-Ireland in COVID with almost no time to work with the team.
Yeah, they were coming from the base of being All-Ireland champions.
It's true, yeah, it's true. I mean,
5 in a row All-Ireland champions. They're the best team in the country by a distance. I do still think that time will tell how this thing will go. I just think one thing we can be clear on now is that Dublin are absolutely one of the favourites for the All-Ireland, as opposed to some sort of also-ran who may have a puncher's chance in a big game. They don't have a puncher's chance. They will absolutely be close to being favourites in every single game they'll play between now and the end of the season.
And I think the odds are actually changing before our eyes because of the quality of the performance and the fitness of the players and the individuals. Like when James McCarthy didn't start the first game, I was like, "Ooh, what's the story here?" But then obviously
he was brilliant yesterday.
Things changed.
He was absolutely class yesterday.
They were just bringing him back. They were just managing his minutes. They were just doing what like Leinster and Ireland do. They were like, okay, we understand there will be times later on in the year where we need you to be at your very best. And like, generational footballer, generational footballer, Fenton in midfield, generational footballer, Conor Callaghan, and maybe Kilkenny reaches the position of being a generational footballer. That's the backbone of your team right there.
Definitely think Kilkenny could be in with a shout of getting like an individual footballer of the year sort of gong soon. It felt last year was maybe one of those moments where you thought Kilkenny's definitely making more of a contribution on the scoreboard. Maybe the stats don't back that up. That just kind of is how it felt. And yesterday, maybe it was 5 points he got all from play yesterday, so he's definitely contributing more on the scoreboard. The one thing that you would be getting hope from if you were Kildare is just the amount that Dublin conceded yesterday while being very, very comfortable. 114 was what they conceded at the end yesterday, which is a pretty big tally considering this felt like 2020 when they absolutely destroyed Meath. But what they conceded was not like that at all. In fact, it's been 5 years since Dublin have conceded that much in a Leinster football championship. It was the 2017 Leinster football final against Kildare where they conceded more than 114. So they've gone through 5 years of not conceding that amount in this competition, and they did yesterday. So that defence is definitely...
I think they won that game by 10 points as well, didn't they?
Don't get me wrong, they absolutely hockeyed them, as they did everybody for the last 10 years. Right. But that's the one nugget of hope if you're Kildare.
1A, 1B in the performance rankings, we're saying they're on a tier on their own at the moment, and then Derry are third, are they? Is that? We'll have to wait and see. Shifty Lad says, brilliant Journone. I never noticed jerseys, only it was great they were red and we were blue. That's Shifty, who 2 minutes ago was telling us, I'm not really a Leinster fan, but now he's we were blue. Welcome aboard the bandwagon, is all I'll say to you. O'Toole 1905 says, lads, I'd love a rule to be in. If any cup final is 0-0 after 2 hours, the cup goes back on the shelf, no winner, no parade, everyone go home. That would make them play and compete.
Yeah. I kind of like the build-up of the tension over
the penalties.
Or even just throughout the 90 to 120 minutes, just the real sort of tightrope nature to extra time. One mistake and it could all be over.
Paul McGee says, this week is when the hope kills you, hoping Gers mighty Villa do us a favour on Sunday. Thoughts on O'Gara versus Leinster? It's kind of sickening for Leinster to be like, oh, it's going to be O'Gara again. Oh, no. O'Gara versus Sexton will... there might be a narrative around that in the build-up to this game, perhaps. John Claffey says, is West for La Rochelle that bad at goal kicking all year round or just in the pressure games we get to see near the end of the season? It was the same last year. Damien says, I'm surprised that La Rochelle's goal kicking with Rog as coach. Was it Rugby Pass or Rugby Lad or one of those had a picture of O'Gara looking down going at the pitch going, get me my boots, lads. Conor Pratt says, surely Farrell wants the top English gig at some stage. I don't know. I mean, I think the likelihood is that Andy Farrell's going to be the Ireland coach for this World Cup cycle and the next one. Robert Moyles says, enough structure talk. Hurling structures aren't much better than football. It's just a better sport and spectacle. I don't know. We'll come back to that. It's 8 minutes past 8. We've got a packed show still to come on OTB AM. We're talking next with Liverpool legend Mark Lawrenson about the FA Cup final. Before the ad break, here's Owen, this guy, at Croke Park yesterday trying to get Paddy Andrews to say that Kerry are still better than Dublin. Back after these.
Exactly. I get the sense that you're not willing to put Dublin into the same category as Kerry just yet. Am I summing you up wrong there? It feels like you're holding back just a little bit on. You want to see them against a better team. I sense here.
Yeah, it's hard to get a read on them. Look, all we can go on is what we've seen from the season today, not just the last couple of weeks. And Kerry have been the standout team. They were dominant in the National League. They didn't set the world on fire against Cork in their game, but they did exactly what they needed to do. They're still the team to catch, the team to beat. For Dublin, it's definitely improvements from what we've seen in the National League, but it is hard to get a read because they played a Division 4 team and then a really, a poor Meath team today. you'll start getting, I think you get a lot more answers in 2 weeks' time. Kildare will give a real test to that Dublin team. If they come through that with a performance like today, then you're definitely talking about them being right in the mix for All-Ireland honours. But what we've seen today, solid defensively again, and that efficiency up front, 28 scores out of 30 shots. That's some of the best shooting we've seen in the championship to date. So there's absolutely still a force, but overall, Kerry are probably rightly still favourites for the overall.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I knew it was going to be a tricky one, but I definitely didn't think there'd be no shots on target.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action.
You have to win dirty sometimes, every single team, no matter who you are, no matter what firepower you have.
And the biggest interviews.
A difference in our style, but it wasn't a difference as to who we are or what our identity as a team were.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Paddy, I go, what? He goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Well, it was quite the weekend for Liverpool. No better man than Mark Lawrenson to talk to you about it. Mark, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm all good, thank you.
What kind of a hangover do you have today as a matter of interest?
I have got a hangover, but how do you know I've got a hangover?
Well, because it was a big weekend and I'm sure you were celebrating.
All right, yeah, I'm in Mallorca now, so I was.
Well, let's focus on you just for a second there. Totes emosh?
Say again?
Were you totes emosh?
What's that mean?
It's what the kids say when they're like, very emotional. It's called totes emosh.
Oh, right. Well, as you can tell, I'm not down with the kids, so I have no idea. No, I know I'd made the decision ages ago, so I just didn't tell anybody. It was actually, they're going on about 25 years, and it's actually, I think, my first gig with the BBC was 31 years ago, and would you believe it was a radio game, and it was Peterborough United 1, Liverpool 0, a massive shock. So some game to start with. Had you already finished playing when you started, or were you still playing when you were doing a bit of radio work? No, I was finished. I think it was about 91 or something. No, I'd already finished. So. And did you love it straight away? Yeah, probably did. I'd had no training. They just said, come and co-commentate. it was. Over in Britain, it's Radio 5 Live. They do all the football, but it was Radio 2, I think, even in those days. So they hadn't kind of progressed to Radio 5 Live at the time. I know ITV got the highlight rights very early on in the Premier League years, but I'm fairly sure that you and Hansen were the double act when the Premier League was kind of peaking or starting to come through, and the money was starting to come through on the BBC, which was, great timing on your part and on the pair of your part, and that you were very firmly established as main Saturday night football show being watched by millions. Two main idiots. Yeah. Well, listen, don't forget Trevor Brooking. There was three of us. So I came and joined. I think Jimmy Hill basically finished, and then it was Trevor Brooking and Al, and then I was like the third person. So obviously we used to rotate and stuff. So it was a right place, right time, and as I saw from Saturday, some of the bloody shirts I used to wear on the telly were just mad. But hey. A fella used to write into me every week, absolutely slaughtering me every single week. And he said, and the Gokwan had just arrived on the scene. I think he's the fashion guru, isn't he, or something? He said,
I'm going to get you an appointment with him and all that. It was so funny. But he wrote to me every single week and you just go, wow, get a life.
Did you ever have that appointment with Gokwan?
No.
It's not too late. I mean, that would be. I think everybody would watch that now, Mark.
No, you're all right, boys. Honestly, I'm fine.
He did a series How to Look Good Naked, didn't he?
Yeah.
Now it's more cookery stuff, so you'll be all right.
Yeah, well, both. Listen, I'm stuffed on both completely. No chance. I can't cook anything.
Well, listen, congratulations on a great innings. Like most people get a couple of seasons and they shuffle off, but you managed to keep it going for that length of time. That says something.
Yeah. It was good. It was fun. It was like, Tony. We had Tony Blair on one week and everything. He was great, him actually. But he couldn't remember his. I don't think he couldn't remember what his first game was. Well, he knew it was Newcastle. He couldn't remember who they played against. But I suppose we gave him a bit of leeway because he was the Prime Minister at the time. He had probably more important things to think about.
All right, doubt it. Did you do predictions? Did you do predictions against Tony Blair?
No.
Who's the
predictions have only come in I think the last 10 years or something.
Who's the most high-profile person you've gone predicting against?
I think I did Schwarzenegger, Will Ferrell, quite a few of the Americans who obviously knew absolutely nothing about it. But they must a bit like myself. They must have had a film or there's loads of music guys as well been on there and everything. So obviously just to promote stuff, which is totally understandable. But yeah, and Schwarzenegger swore at me. I think he told me to F off, as a bit of fun, because he's a blue, isn't he? He's an Evertonian, but obviously they bleeped it out. The BBC being the BBC bleeped it out. So, as you know.
For anybody who missed it, you were asked, what's the main difference kind of between nowadays and your time? And you talked about the teetotal footballers today, but it was different in your time. And I think the story involved a famous goalkeeper.
Bruce Grombar, yeah. It was just one of those many things. So when they asked me the question, I suddenly thought, crikey, what shall I say? Because there's so many you couldn't really repeat. But he was nuts, as everybody knows. Good goalkeeper, but he was nuts. But in those days, I think we used to go to Southampton. It'd be 6 hours on a coach. So as long as we drew or won, we'd get wine and beer on the way back. You'd take it from under the coach and bring it up to the seats and everything. And being stupid footballers, we only had one bottle opener. And so we started off, we got the beer and the wine, and the boys were playing cards and all those kind of things, killing the 6 hours and what have you, and the music's going. And suddenly everyone's gone, who's got the opener? So we couldn't find the opener. To this day, I don't know where it went. So they went, well, we're absolutely stuffed. We can't open the Budweisers or whatever they were. So Brucey actually said, don't worry, I'll sort it. So the first thing he did, I didn't have enough time, obviously, to ramble on the telly on the Saturday to say the first bit, which was he opened the beer with his teeth, which I think loads of people, I've never done it, but loads of people have done it. It wasn't a great shot, and we just looked at him and just thought, well, he's nuts anyway. And then his famous words were, I've got a better one than that. And we said, what are you on about? He said, I've got a better one than that. And we said, what? He said, watch this. So he put the beer bottle in his eye socket and twisted it, and it opened and it cut the top bit and the little bit there. And we're all looking at him thinking, oh my God, he's not really just done that. And I think it might have been Hansen, might have just went, well, you don't need your eyes, do you, the way you're playing at the moment? And like, on we go, mad, absolutely bonkers. Could you imagine that now? Allison did that on a oh my goodness me.
Yeah, his peripheral vision no longer any good, which would explain some of the goals flying in from odd angles. Talk to us then about the penalty shootout. When the game reaches that point, what's your level of confidence that it's going to be successful for Liverpool? And does that waver at any point through when it looks like maybe this isn't going to go their way? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's 50-50, isn't it? I don't care who you play against, any team. It's 50-50, and you don't know what your goalkeeper's going to do. He might sort this thing, I'm going to dive for every single one, or pretend to dive, or all those kind of things. So I have to say the standard of penalty taking nowadays is really, really good. And, when you look at them, the goalkeepers actually make relatively few saves. So it's your heart's in your mouth, in it, when they take them. I must admit, I'm delighted that Tsimikas scored, because I know from just obviously being around the club and working for the TV channel and stuff, they absolutely love him. And he's a bit nuts. I think he's a bit Brucey. He's a bit nuts. He's just one of those lads who's always like hyper and everything. So they'll all be delighted for him, certainly. And by the way, he can play right back or left back if you need it. And every time he comes in, it just looks really easy to him.
Maybe it's a coincidence, but it's funny that it's like the off-Broadway players, like it's him, and the last penalty shootout, it's Quinlan Kelleher, who are getting the praise on the day, and who everybody seems really, really very happy for. Like, look, they've just won a trophy, so obviously they're going to be happy. And maybe we read too much into the body language and the celebration afterwards, but like that unity of purpose, that group, it does seem really very together.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get a good dressing room with outstanding players, and you've got trophy-winning teams. It's easy as that. I mean, in the morning on Saturday, I was actually at Wembley for about 10 in the morning. I mean, what's that? Nearly 6 hours, nearly 7 hours before the game started and stuff. But Liverpool do this thing where they came to Wembley, got off the bus, and just walked around the pitch. And apparently, I think it's a little bit kind of stretch the legs without too many people around, but also a little bit of superstition, I would have thought. And it was like they were just going out for a morning stroll. Well, they were going out for a morning stroll and just acclimatising themselves with whatever. And I think obviously Klopp leads the way, and they're all laughing and joking, walking around and all those kind of things. And you can just tell with teams when they're all kind of in the right, sort of pulling in the right direction. And I mean, certainly Liverpool have got that at the moment.
Do you feel Liverpool played well over the course of the 120 minutes?
All right. I mean, when it started, I thought, crikey, they're going to win 3-4 or something like that. But I think that I can't remember a cup final like that where there were so many misplaced passes. When you consider the ability of the players, I just think it kind of petered out a little bit. And then you get to the part where it's, you don't want to lose, do you? You don't want to be the idiot that makes a mistake, whether it's an open goal or defensively or all those kind of things. And I think in the end, and it was inevitable. It was going to extra time and pens, basically. There wasn't that many clear-cut chances, were there?
No, it was obviously Luis Diaz is the main threat throughout the game. It looks like the person that can do the most amount of damage to Chelsea anyway. And like, I mean, we've spoken to you in the past about just what an incredible signing he's been, but it does seem that he's. I know Salah's off the pitch, but it does seem almost at this point that he's Liverpool's most potent threat when Salah's out. And we don't know what the length of that absence is going to be, but maybe for Southampton tomorrow night, maybe for this weekend, Diaz is the person you're putting all your hopes on in that attack.
Yeah, I somehow don't think that Salah or Van Dijk will play tomorrow at Southampton, because you wouldn't. I don't think what they've got is serious, and probably if it was a Champions League final tomorrow, they'd be playing. Well, not probably, absolutely certainly, but I wouldn't mind betting Klopp might just leave them out, because obviously, he can go with the Konate and Matip partnership, and anyone else can come in and play, obviously, instead of Mallard, instead of Salah. So, yeah, I would. But I just heard you say before. I mean, they would still have a team good enough to beat Southampton, I would have thought. And if they don't, well, they don't.
It's interesting that you say that if there was a Champions League final tomorrow, they would definitely play, because I don't know, just again, we don't know what the full extent of the injury is, but it just kind of feels a little bit reminiscent maybe of 2019, and obviously Tottenham being without their main attacker for that final. And in hindsight, maybe Pochettino wouldn't have started Harry Kane. In hindsight, again, this is possibly a very, very different situation. But is there anything in that about that kind of that recent example of putting a reputation before players' actual fitness?
No, I think it's just the fact that, I mean, they're tired. That's one thing. They played so many games, and normally I never give them any stick for whatever. But they are tired. You have to give that to them. So I think Klopp will probably think, you know what, is it really worth taking the chance? if he plays Salah and Van Dijk, and what if they aggravate what they've got? So I think it's just a precaution. But that's why I say if you've been the Champions League, finally you play your strongest team, don't you? You forget about everything else. It's secondary.
I also think that there's a difference this year in picking a player who you have a doubt about in the final, and that you've got 5 subs to use. So, like, you know, if they do have to go off injured, you can use the full range of your squad. And so, like, it's worth that risk when we're talking about those players. If it was kind of an average player in your team, you'd be like, well, I'm going to replace him with an average player. But we're talking about, like, the best striker in the world and the best centre back in the world. So you got to pick them.
Yeah. So, you know, that, as you say, the beauty of the 5 subs, etc. And I mean, Klopp's talked about this lots, but this, I would say, in all my time that 81 I joined Liverpool, and all that time since, this is definitely the best squad the club's ever had in terms of strength of depth. I mean, they've 2 players for virtually every position, and before you shout at me, I mean, Joe Gomez can play right back instead of Trent. Obviously wouldn't be quite the same, but he's still a very, very good player. And everywhere you look, of course, Tsimikas could play right back as well if you needed him to. So, but everywhere you look, you'd say, you know, the cover's excellent. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be a weakness. And I've said to this before with him, with Klopp, it's just, you know, this clever thing of just having everybody together and saying, you know, to a player, look, you're not playing tomorrow, but you're going to play on Saturday, whenever the next game is, and so you don't get anybody knocking on your door saying, "Why am I not playing?" So, you know, it's all right having a really top squad, 20 odd players, all vying for the position, but keeping them happy is difficult. But he seems to be able to do it.
For the Champions League final, if Van Dijk is fit, who do you think will be his central defensive partner?
Well, you see, I'm Matip, but it's looking like Canate. Canate seems to play in the cup games, seems to play in Europe. So, and he's got better and better and better. I just think my thing with Matip is that I just think he gives you a little bit extra. He gives you everything that Canate gives you, but he'll come out with the ball and he will sort of engage midfield players, certainly the Madrid midfield players. And I just think, you know, it makes it a little bit easy for your midfield players because a little bit more space because they're drawn to this guy who's coming through the middle and you know, dribbling. So that's the thing. But listen, there's not a big difference between the two of them.
It was nearly the perfect weekend when West Ham were 2-0 up against City.
Yeah.
If they could just have seen that through, then it would have been ball game back on. So Riyad Mahrez ends up missing the penalty that would really have won the league for City. You know, in all but name.
He's done it. He's got previous, hasn't he?
He does. He's also been, I think, a big game performer for them. Somewhat underrated in that galaxy of stars. But is it important? Is that your point important? I mean, it certainly keeps Liverpool dreaming.
Yeah, it keeps them dreaming, but I think we all expect City to win, and even though, as you said before, that you'd expect that Liverpool would win it at Southampton, even missing some of the top players, you just never ever know, do you? And I, as I said to you before, I never really give people that, you know, oh, we're tired, and all those kind of things. But they actually, the last few games, they've looked a bit leggy. You know, people like Salah, etc., who just started to look a little bit leggy. And when I say leggy, just without that real sharpness that makes all the difference. And I mean, Southampton are one of the teams you never know what you're going to get from them, aren't you? It's their last game, obviously, at home as well. So I think they'll certainly give Liverpool a game, certainly. And if there's any free kicks, as we know, outside the penalty area, your man Ward-Prowse is brilliant at them.
Unless it's 9-0, in which case they're due a 9-0 this season.
Yeah, they haven't got one. I did the 9-0 at Old Trafford last year. Yeah, they probably are, but they've got a good manager, actually. I think he's a good manager, Hasenhüttl.
Is there anything you saw in Manchester City's performance yesterday that would give Liverpool hope?
No. No. Let's just go no.
Okay.
Let's,
They were 2-0 down.
I think you're right, though, right? And so I think
2-0 down, but they come back.
Yeah, and should have won it.
You know, I mean, and they've got no defenders, haven't they? So, but I mean,
you say that, but they had Aki on the bench, right? And I actually think that he gets a bit of a free pass for the building of the squad. The depth on the bench wasn't good enough against Real Madrid. There were a lot of kids on the bench, and sure, this is the whole point of having the world's greatest academy of all time, apparently, and investing all that money in the coaching and buying all the best young players in the world to come to the Man City academy. But they still were young players who had no experience. And again, so he had Fernandinho, who's leaving at the end of the season as a centre back yesterday, with Aki, who we keep getting told is ready to step up but isn't trusted. I just think that sometimes Pep, because he's Pep, gets forgiven any of the errors where the squad isn't good enough.
Oh no, he does. He does. I mean, Aki's a decent player, but he's not top, is he? So, how old's Fernandinho? He's nearly 40 soon, isn't he? But if you really think about it, is that if you play against Manchester City, for most teams, you probably get 30% of the possession. So if you think about that, then you have to score. You have to score with your 30% possession, because they will have 70. They will have the ball, and generally, you're all like, it's 4-5-1. You sat in there, and you're trying to make it really, really difficult for them. So. But no, I just think the fact they were 2-0 down and they come back, I wasn't surprised by that, because they're just such an outstanding team.
And Steven Gerrard and Philip Coutinho won't be able to do enough between them to get a point for Aston Villa on the final day of the season.
Well, I was at Villa Park on Tuesday, and to be honest with you, Coutinho, I didn't really see him. The game passed him by a little bit, but I know he'll be against I think with Coutinho, against any team outside the top six, he'll be outstanding, because he'll get a bit more of the ball, and obviously, he's very, very good at it. But against the big teams, I just felt he was a little bit of a non-entity, to be honest with you. But I understand why they've taken him.
Yeah, and they've ended up getting a reasonable deal for him in the end. Just a quick word on the relegation situation, because it looked like at various stages we knew what was going to happen. 8 weeks ago we would have said Norwich, Watford and Burnley are going down, and then Burnley went on their run and looked like they were getting themselves out of trouble because Leeds were in free fall, and then at the weekend Leeds just managed somehow to dig something out and now have a point advantage over Burnley, who play Villa midweek before the final game of the season. So and Everton, of course, looked like they were going to be okay, because they've only got Brentford. Just don't get a man sent off in the first half against Brentford. You should be okay. And I don't know. All of a sudden, it's right all in the melting pot again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just thought Leeds were going to go latterly, because they're playing angry, and you can't play football. You can't play angry football. It doesn't work for you. And I mean, if you look at Aliens sending off, James, was it, got sent off as well, and you look at them and you just kind of think, well, they've got that wild look in their eyes. But I didn't see yesterday. I hadn't realised for a long time. I just thought, obviously, we're getting beat by Brighton. I thought just stay at 1-0. So that last minute equaliser was a breath of fresh air for them. But it's one of them, innit? I mean, they could all go, as in anyone from those teams could go. And I somehow once Burnley stopped the run, I kind of thought, I wonder now if actually it's levelled off a little bit, and they might just go. But don't Burnley have Newcastle last game at home? Is that right?
I'll tell you exactly now. Burnley.
I think so. I mean, Newcastle playing tonight, but I think, and if you were told beat Newcastle at home, excuse me, last game and you stay up, that would be somewhat of an incentive, would it not?
Yeah. So look, I guess it's any of those teams at this stage could still get sucked into it, and it's hard to make any one of them favourites under the circumstances, because.
Well. Yeah, and we keep, we're talking about sending offs and all those kind of things, and we've got VAR decisions that will come into play, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that you lads will know. I seem to think this season I have never ever seen so many late goals in the Premier League or the old Division 1 or whatever it was, it seems to be almost every week there's a 90 plus 6 minute equaliser goal, whatever. So that's an interesting stat. I don't do stats, but that is an interesting one. I mean, how does that work?
Is it just because everybody's shattered?
Probably, yeah, probably. But I mean, shattered or loss of concentration, maybe. But it is unusual. I mean, look, Brighton had a spell, didn't they, where they kept scoring very, very late, and it wasn't once or twice. It was like, it seemed to be 5 or 6 or 7 times in a succession.
Yeah.
It does kind of feel like this is the first time we've hit kind of like or about to hit a lull in club football since July 2020. Like it has been a long time coming, but it also kind of makes you think that you'd wonder if, you know, the Premier League at the start of next season will maybe have a different look to it. Like, I mean, we often get bogged down in the here and the now, and Manchester City and Liverpool being so amazing and so far ahead of the pack, but with an actual proper off-season for the first time in a couple of years, you'd wonder actually could there be a shift at the top of the table maybe in terms of other challengers, other people who might make it a bit interesting at least next season?
No, I don't see it.
Okay.
I really don't see it, because I mean, I think they need too many players. The teams you're talking about, so we're talking Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, aren't we, basically? And too early for Newcastle, although they will improve, but it's going to take them a while to get anywhere near. So, no, I don't really see that. And I mean, you know, talked about the depth and the quality in Liverpool's squad. City might add a couple more. You know what they're like. They've obviously taken your man, and that's going to be interesting to see how they play with Haaland, because I think when you see a lot of his goals, there's a lot of green grass between him and the goalkeeper generally. City don't really play that way. They have so much possession and they play little rinky-dink passes, don't they, in and around the penalty area. So that's going to be interesting to see what he does. I mean, he's going to score goals because he can, and he's a beast, but be interesting to see how they cope with him and he copes with them, and especially with Guardiola, as you say, sometimes does make the odd strange decision in terms of selection.
What's the ceiling for Conte's Spurs if he's got an actual off-season to work with, then Champions League football, if they get there with a squad that's already pretty strong? Like, I presume they'll be looking at Chelsea at least, saying we can be better than you next season.
Yeah, I would think so. And obviously Arsenal's still a bit skittish, aren't they, as we know, and Tottenham can be. But I'm told that the players actually really, really like Conte, and there doesn't seem to be anybody that doesn't, and they really believe in him. So the problem's going to be what the chief executive's going to give Conte in terms of money to buy players and bring them in, isn't it? That's always the thing at Tottenham.
And whether or not he'll be there, so it's going to be very.
Conte.
Yeah.
I think he'll be there. I actually get the impression that he's grown to like it. I think maybe when he only sign for, I don't know, 18 months or
18
something.
18 months, yeah, I think so.
Right. So I think he's grown to like it. I think when he first signed, I was a little bit like, he's thinking, well, I'll do this for a while, and then if something else crops up, off I go. But and I don't think it's easy working with Daniel Levy, but they must have some kind of relationship. And I think the head of recruitment is Italian, is he not?
Yeah.
So there's a buffer there between Conte and Daniel Levy. I just think sometimes Conte says things just to see what reaction he gets from upstairs. And I think that's the other thing at football clubs nowadays for managers is you've got to manage the team, but you've got to manage upwards as well. That's all part and parcel of it. And I know that Fergie said many, many years ago to anybody who would listen that was managing in the Premier League, he was saying to them, when you do your press conference on the day before a game, he said, that's when you get out what you want to get out. He said, because that's your big chance, somebody asks you the question. So, and, it's not just getting your team to play every week and win games. It's the whole shebang in terms of dealing with everybody. I mean, God, these fellas must be so harassed all the time because somebody wants a piece of them.
Well, listen, Mark, I hope you enjoy however long you're in Mallorca, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.
Yeah, I'm back Friday. There's no peace for the wicked.
There you go. Nice one. Congratulations on a great career, by the way, too.
Thank you.
It's Mark Lawrenson
Cheers,
gives us
boys.
his thoughts this morning. What do you feel about Arsenal? You're the opposite of a lucky charm. You go and they get absolutely annihilated in the Northern Derby.
Does anybody think that they're going to get 3 points tonight?
At
I would
Newcastle.
look. I'll be straight up, Jar. I'll go full Kevin Keegan here. I'd absolutely love it. I would love it if Tottenham didn't get top 4 at this point. It would be so unbelievably funny if after last Thursday night Tottenham actually didn't get top 4 after the poxy penalty they got yesterday, that they didn't get top 4. You have to accept that would be hilarious. That would be way funnier than Arsenal's implosion. And I accept that I accept that Arsenal imploding is funny for people that aren't me, but
they were rubbish and they have got really good since they made big changes in the middle of the season. So it's not, I don't expect, if Conte manages to get them top 4, that's a great achievement. Whereas Arteta should really have this team nicely, safely tucked up, snuggled underneath the Champions League blanket for next season.
yeah, but that's a different conversation entirely. I'm talking about the comedy of the last couple of days, that Tottenham looked like such a superior team to Arsenal, and rubbed it in Arsenal's faces. Arsenal are bottlers or chokers, they let the occasion get to them, and it would just be so funny if Arsenal still finished ahead of them.
Okay, I see the Arsenal fan narrative has overtaken you. That's fine. It should. So you don't think?
No, what's the narrative? What's the narrative you actually want to?
Well, the truth is, it's still Arsenal's. Arsenal just have to go to Newcastle and win.
Yeah, I'm not sure they will though.
It's in their hands.
Yeah, I think that there's like a significant amount of psychological damage that's been done on last Thursday night, to be honest. So I don't actually expect them to do it.
What will happen tonight?
I think it'll be a draw, 1-1 draw.
Okay. And that'll
be curtains then, unless Tottenham somehow don't win against Norwich in the final day of the season.
Yeah, which is going to happen. There's still is a Chelsea free fall? Is it impossible? Chelsea Leicester. That's on Wednesday night.
Yeah, no, I think if Arsenal are going to catch Chelsea, they'll have caught Spurs as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can hope for Chelsea at this point. But Tottenham maybe could potentially catch
Chelsea Watford on the last day of the season, which is going to be pretty easy.
Watford now, yeah.
The London Times have the story that Andreas Christensen asked not to play in the FA Cup final.
Right.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, what's
because he's leaving. He's on his way out. He said he made himself unavailable.
Interesting. Werner also unavailable. He was unfit according to Tuchel.
He left the team hotel before the game. Members of the Chelsea squad are believed to have been surprised and confused. He's only 26. He's been at the club since 2012. Joined from Bromby's academy, and that was it. It was like, no, I'm not playing the FA Cup final. Like, why not? At that stage, it can't be fear of injury, can it?
No, I don't know what it is. I don't know what Andreas Christensen is thinking. He obviously wouldn't have been in there. Maybe their very first choice 11 for a lot of the season. There's obviously a departure coming in the heart of their defence over the next little while, like with Rudiger out the door. It was interesting listening to Rudiger actually on Saturday saying that there's maybe a chance for him to stay at the club if it wasn't for sanctions on Chelsea Football Club, which is pretty hilarious considering he turned down a deal at Chelsea, I think. So like there's an opening there for a central defender, but it looks like Christensen is maybe considering his options as well.
Right. Okay, 8:42. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. To celebrate bringing the football pod on the road, we're giving you the chance to win 2 tickets to join Tommy Rooney, Paddy Andrews, James O'Donoghue and special guests at the Royal Theatre in Castlebar. All you got to do to be with a chance to win is tell us who this mystery GAA voice is.
Jesus Christ, they don't even care about it properly. They're not giving it the respect.
You can comment with your answer on our live YouTube stream now, or tag us with your answer on Twitter at OffTheBallAM. Right, here's Westmeath's hurling boss Joe Fortune saying that their stunning draw, salvaged at the death with Wexford at the weekend, was one for the ages.
I thought we were the better team though, did you? I thought all along there was never, like, Mac got the ball out in the end there and I said, geez, he'll break Westmeath hearts here now if he'd have put it over the bar. But I just thought for the whole game we looked more up for it. We looked like our touch was good. Niall O'Brien I thought was fantastic inside. Jogger, Jesus, what a man. Like, I should build a statue of him in Westmeath, lads, I'm telling you. He's colossal. Darragh Egerton and Roy O'Connor, I thought was really, really good. Like Shane McGovern, first start championship, was asked to mark Dermot O'Keefe, and I think O'Keefe went off after 30 minutes, look, I can't commend him. You leave people out when you mention people, but the work rate, like Niall Mitchell going up and back, and you probably heard me roaring at him, get back up the field, and I wanted him up there because I thought when Derry came in as well, like Derek made a difference, claims the goal, like there's still life in that man yet, look, I'm just a happy man. I actually don't know how I feel because you know, you're caught in emotion trying to get a match won, and then you've got people, real genuine Westmeath people, who came to me and said that for the first time in 50 years they're proud to be Westmeath GAA people, and that means an awful lot, like, you know. Yeah, but sure, look, the reality is Wexford were going, everyone was talking about how Wexford were going to a Leinster final, or, you know, the funny thing is sometimes it irks those players inside, but maybe they're used to it growing up. You know, I was the Dublin manager against Westmeath, and Cormac Ryan, who's begins to cycle across America tomorrow to raise awareness for suicide prevention and for eating disorders. He was part of our backroom for a number of months there, and he actually spoke to the lads one night about how the only team that Dublin ever feared coming up was Westmeath, because he knew they were such passionate people, and we knew coming here that nobody would give us a chance, and we spoke about that all week. And look, I can't commend them enough. I've said it to you on many occasions. I'm a happy man tonight, but just at the same time conscious that we have such a big job ahead next Saturday night, and you can have all this, and it's great, and you know, it's hugely proud night for Westmeath people, but we have to get the job done finish next Saturday night, because
how was injury worries for next weekend?
Master J's, like, they strolled into the dressing room there, not a bother on that. If we had lost the match, we'd say they were look, we'd be in the lake. The funny thing is, like, people think, geez, that's great for Westmeath hurling, but like, those boys will be in the lake tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, like, and they'll be in that lake for half an hour, and they'll get the recovery done, they'll eat, and people don't see what they put on hold, you know, to be an inter-county Westmeath senior hurler. And there's days where you'd question why you'd want to be one, but today is one where they got the answer that they can, if they apply themselves, they could achieve something special as a group, you know.
Okay, 8:46 this morning here on OTB AM. That's very happy Westmeath hurling camp right there. Carl Malani is with us. Carl, some breaking news this morning. We're in the midst of the draw for the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah, so the fixtures that have been confirmed so far, so the preliminary round draw, these games will take place next weekend. So Wexford against Offaly and then Wicklow against Waterford. And the winners of those two matches will play each other in the first round proper next weekend. So this is in the southern section. So it's Wexford or Offaly against Wicklow against Waterford. Then it's Carlow versus Tipperary and Laois against Westmeath. So that draw is ongoing at the moment.
Laois versus Westmeath.
So they're trying to finalise that draw at the moment, and obviously there's a northern and southern section. So
we can really rally the troops for Laois versus Westmeath. It's very exciting because that never happens.
And Wexford Offaly literally did happen a couple of weeks ago.
Every 2 years.
The Leinster Championship. So there's a repeat Leinster Championship matchup in the Tailteann Cup, because obviously there's been a geographical restriction placed on this competition. And I know that this was made a big thing of last week. And that means there was some blowback to that, being like, you know, this was been in the rules for a long time.
Yeah, okay, it was. But no one paid any attention.
Yeah, nobody paid any attention. And it doesn't make it automatically the right thing to run this thing. Larry McCarthy has said that the reason for the north-south split is to enhance the competition by enhancing local rivalries and to avoid travel costs. That's the reasoning for it. So
didn't the government end up giving the GAA loads of money, and didn't they end up with the books looking pretty sweet in the aftermath of COVID ultimately? Like, isn't that what happened? That the government stepped in and subsidised everything and said, don't worry, we know everything's going to be grand. And so the massive debts that we thought were going to be racked up didn't actually happen. And so therefore the travel cost thing, like, we're not talking about flying to Australia. We're talking about getting a bus. Like, we're 2 buses to travel an extra couple of hours, because you're still going to have to get buses. So you're just giving them an extra couple of hours work. The travel costs are not massive here. Travel costs associated with GAA is mileage given to players because of the amount of training sessions they do. That's why those figures at the end of the year look absolutely crazy. And occasional overnights. So maybe there'll be an overnight. But it's a championship match. It's supposed to be the second best competition in the country. It's supposed to be the Tailteann Cup. You have an opportunity here to have fixtures we've never seen before, to add a little bit of spice. But instead it's fixtures we literally see year in, year out in the provincial championships, which everybody agreed are bullshit at this point. Nobody's interested in the Leinster Football Championship anymore. And here we have the Leinster Football Championship Redux. It's like watered down, variation, same thing again. What's the point?
Yeah, we got Cavan against Down.
Oh.
And Sligo against London, so that's their 2 provincial.
Oh my God!
Oh, in fairness, sir, you're wrong, because we got Leitrim against Antrim and we got Longford against Fermanagh, so we got some cross-border rivalries coming there. But yeah, it will be interesting to kind of see kind of all the various sort of approaches to this from different counties. Like, it definitely feels like Westmeath, just from my own experience yesterday, they'll definitely be going after this, and Cavan, I'd say, will be looking to go and win this. So hopefully the teams themselves do make kind of a big deal of this, and it is a significant competition for them over the next little while.
And generally speaking, I think the reaction has been quite positive. If you consider the post-match stuff from the likes of Andy Moore and Tony McEntee and a lot of the managers that have come out in support of the Tailteann Cup, that they will be taking it seriously. I saw John Mahon said that he travelled down to Offaly training after that loss to Wexford, and he was, I guess, not 100% sure what the reaction of his players would be, and then driving back to Castlebar, he was delighted that they all were fully bought into the prospect of playing in the competition and trying to win the competition. And I think it has great potential.
But the geographical spread makes no sense. But that argument about local rivalries makes no sense. It just makes no sense. It doesn't hold water. We have a provincial championship, and now you're saying this thing has to look fairly similar to the provincial championships. I don't know if this is somehow trying to shore up the power base of the provinces. I don't know why this was introduced as part of the... Bear in mind, the Tailteann Cup predates COVID. Like, the idea of it and the concept of it, was it already baked in at the start? When they were thinking of a second-tier competition, were they like, oh, better make sure that like it's fairly close to the provincial stuff in case anybody gets any ideas, you know? We'd hate to see like a county from the north playing a county from the south. That way it might be chaos.
Or might give people a sense of what actually could be possible. It does feel very sort of 2020, 2021 National League.
Should we run through just the full draw now that it's complete?
Yeah.
So the Southern preliminary round, Wexford against Offaly and Wicklow versus Waterford. Then the Southern round one proper is Wexford or Offaly against Wicklow or Waterford. Then Carlow versus Tipperary and Laois against Westmeath. New York have a bye into the quarter-final stage. Then the Northern section, round one, Longford versus Fermanagh. It's Leitrim against Antrim, Sligo take on London and Cavan against Down. So that's the first ever Tailteann Cup draw completed this morning.
And is it week on week, or is it...
I think the preliminary round is this weekend coming, and then the following week we'll have the first round proper. So that's the schedule at the moment as it stands. And I guess there is the danger on the weekend after next. If you consider that Saturday, we have two provincial football finals. You've got the Heineken Champions Cup final and you've got the Champions League final, and then the Tailteann Cup going to be involved there as well. Whether they're on the Saturday or Sunday, I'm not sure yet. They'll have to be fixed, obviously, but that's going to be one hell of a sporting weekend, one way or the other.
And when do we find out? Sorry, you probably just said it there, but I was just reading some notes. When do we find out about the qualifiers for the Sam Maguire?
Presumably they're next weekend, or the draw for that is next after next weekend, should I say? I would imagine.
For the first round of the qualifiers, and then possibly then the round one will actually be played on the bank holiday weekend.
Yeah. So then you're really into it then. So I think that, look, I mean, I take on board the points that you make in terms of the geographical split isn't ideal, but let's see how the competition unfolds maybe before making a full assessment of where it's at. But we obviously will have the round robin next year as well, which is going to liven it up a little bit more too.
A geographical round robin, how great that would be.
I wouldn't. There might be a little clause in there. Thankfully, it's not due to be a geographical round robin.
It is, isn't it?
Now I'm being put on the spot. There's definitely, you're being rewarded because of your provincial championship finishing places. So like your top two and your finalists for your provincial competitions will get seeded into your 4 team groups. So but I don't think it'll be like Kildare and Dublin in the same group. I think Kildare will just be a 2 seed, Dublin will be a 1 seed in an open draw.
Oh, we're talking Tailteann Cup.
I thought you were talking all round robin for the Tailteann Cup. Yeah. Sorry, I think I meant round robin for the actual championship.
I think the round robin for the Tailteann Cup will be geographically separated next season as well. In which case you'd basically be having the provincial round robins.
Yeah.
Except with like...
It's not great. Like the one...
With an arbitrary north-south line. The Mason-Dixie line.
Yeah, but to Cahill's point on like that Super Saturday of sport where like you have the Heineken Champions Cup and the Champions League on like that for me is kind of one of the more frustrating aspects of all of this. Like I embrace the fact that there's all this sport going on at the moment, but I think the GAA should possibly be embracing that challenge as well and thinking, right, okay, let's make sure our product is the very best thing it can possibly be as we're going up against all these things. Like sitting in Croke Park yesterday, it felt like nobody cares about this.
No, because
it felt sad. It was
I think the venue. I think you're wrong. I think that having the game in Croke Park was nonsensical in the end. Because if there had been a throbbing crowd, like if Kildare had to go to Westmeath for that game, which there's no reason why they shouldn't have. Do it home and away. Do home and away with all the counties, and then over the next period of time until games have to, until it gets so big, until you have an All-Ireland champion who isn't Dublin in a Leinster semi-final, and then you go, okay lads, sorry, this is such a big game, so many people want to see it, we're moving to Croker, and you can have the next 2 home games. But if that game had been in Mullingar, what would that have been like?
Yeah, it would have been better. I still
it would have been full.
I still am unsure if it would have been something that people would have cared about.
Do you remember the Luxembourg? Do you remember the Luxembourg game that we played? Was it Luxembourg? Where we, and the 8,000 seater stadium was absolutely full.
Yeah,
and it was tight, and the Luxembourg fans were making loads of noise. The game was much better as a result of that.
Yeah, I accept that, but my point isn't actually about what the spectacle was. I still think that there would have been a degree of apathy around the country for those games because they're playing in a competition where we know who the winner is going to be, and that for me is one of the issues. And I know it's the
right.
millionth time that I've said it, and we've had this conversation again, and I hate to be coming back to it, but it's just kind of looking at some of the counties and the lack of games between the end of March and essentially the middle of June, or the lack of games of meaningful quality in a split season. Those problems that we've been speaking about for years are getting compounded and they're being made worse. And the worst thing about it is that there is apathy now. It's not about people being angry about championship structures anymore. Nobody gives a damn. And it felt that was the case at Croke Park yesterday.
Joe in our YouTube comments makes the point that there was only 4,000 more in the Aviva for a showcase match versus the crowd at Croker.
Yeah, it's a fair. I thought 38,000 was actually a decent chunk of people yesterday. It does get relatively lost in Croke Park, but also what helps make it get lost is that Meath were dead after 5 minutes.
Half shuffle in, half shuffle out. Kildare and Westmeath don't stick around, so it's not actually 41,000, 38,000 in there at the whole same time watching the one thing.
No, but also the Aviva is a smaller stadium, so that kind of plays into the point of put that crowd. It wouldn't be 38,000, but put half that crowd into a stadium that's even smaller than half the size of Croke Park, and all of a sudden you've got a much better atmosphere.
Yeah, for example, the Limerick and Clare hurling match yesterday in Cusack Park, and Donlog Cusack made the point on the Sunday game about, I think there was only 18,000 at it, but it was packed to the rafters, and they were all on the pitch then afterwards, and a real sense of occasion about it. So it does show the benefit of having those sort of games. Now, obviously, that's a Clare team in form against the All-Ireland champions, and a really tight match that it was, but it did show the potential in having those sort of games in provincial grounds.
And how will Sligo feel about London?
Well, I mean,
at home, right? First team out?
Yeah, they've been drawn out first. Look, I think there's very little in all of those games when you consider Cavan and Down. Cavan are probably starting out as favourites in that competition, but Down did ply their trade in Division 2, albeit they've lost a few players from their panel, and they didn't perform particularly well against Monaghan in the Ulster Championship. But on the face of it, Laois and Westmeath would probably be one of the other favourites in the southern section that they start out in. So I would say Westmeath and Cavan, probably the two strongest teams from the outset. Antrim will fancy their chances, I think. They've had quite a good run under Enda McGinley, and maybe will feel that they haven't achieved all that they might have had given some of their form in some of their matches. And then obviously Offaly will certainly have the bit between their teeth to bounce back against Wexford and then potentially move on from there. But I think
Tipperary Cavan final, is that what we're all saying?
Is there a possibility for Westmeath to be in there?
Yeah, well, Westmeath, Tipperary and Offaly are all on the same side of the draw in the southern section, so
Westmeath, Cavan final?
Westmeath, Cavan, I think, yeah, if I was predicting it, but yeah, Tip a good shout as well.
Yeah, because Westmeath have been very unlucky. I mean, they were unlucky to get relegated in the league last year, if memory serves, and they should have beaten Kildare last year in the Leinster semi-final.
All right.
And they weren't bad yesterday either, so let's see.
All right, anything else from you?
Well, let's run through some of the other stuff. Obviously, one game in the Premier League tonight, that's Newcastle against Arsenal from 8 o'clock this evening. That game at St James's Park. There's one game here at home as well. That's in the SSE Electricity League First Division with Treaty United playing Longford Town. That game kicks off at 7:45 at Markets Field. In terms of the Premier League action yesterday, Manchester City still in control of the title race. They came from 2 goals down to earn a 2-2 draw with West Ham. That point keeps Pep Guardiola's side top and 4 points clear of Liverpool. Liverpool do have a game in hand. However, at the other end, Everton missed the chance to secure their status following a 3-2 loss to Brentford. Leeds out of the bottom 3 thanks to a 1-1 draw with Brighton. Burnley now in 18th after their 1-0 loss to Tottenham. A record crowd at the Women's FA Cup final yesterday. Just over 49,000 people watched Chelsea complete the double. They beat Manchester City by 3-2. That game went to extra time. In golf last night, Pádraig Harrington just missed out on a first Champions Tour major. He ended in second at the Regions Tradition Tournament in Alabama. Steve Stricker collecting the title there. He finished 6 shots ahead of Harrington on 21 under par. Both players carded final rounds of 4 under par 68. KH Lee took the honours in the Byron Nelson Championship last night. That was on the PGA Tour. He finished on 26 under par, 1 shot better than Jordan Spieth in second. Seamus Power, the Irish interest there in the final day, he finished in a tie for 17th on 18 under. Irish interest too at the LPGA Tour's Founders Cup. Stephanie Meadow finishing in a tie for 68th on 1 over par. Minjee Lee the winner there on 19 under. She was 2 shots clear of Lexi Thompson. Irish interest at the Women's World Boxing Championships this afternoon. 4 Irish boxers in quarter-final action. Michaela Walsh, Amy Broadhurst, Lisa O'Rourke and Carly McNaull are all in the ring in Istanbul later on today. So that's a flavour of what's happening in sport today.
Carl, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. That's Carl Mullaney with that. You can hear more from Carl on The Brief. You can subscribe to that on the OTB Podcast Network, wherever you get your pods. And the best place, of course, is the OTB Sports app, which you can get for free in the app stores. It's bang on 9 o'clock, and a reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, Jared, thanks.
You correctly predicted 20 points for Leinster. You were close enough, bang on. It was one of those games where it was a signature performance from Leinster, which will be great if they win the competition, but which will be quickly consigned to the dustbin of our memories if they don't. So what do they need to be worried about, and Ronan O'Gara and La Rochelle, over the next couple of weeks?
Probably Ronan O'Gara and his motivation and desire, and probably going to France as well. It's going to be different going to Marseille. They're in a great position, aren't they? They can rest players this week again, be really fresh going into that final in Marseille on Saturday week. And I don't think they have too much to be worried about. I think the only thing that can happen when you're firm favourites to win any sort of final is complacency and maybe things going wrong on the day. But I think they're too good now, Leinster, for that to happen. I think for La Rochelle, the match against Racing yesterday was really poor spectacle. Lots of mistakes, lots of errors, and I think the impression that everyone is getting now is that it's going to be very difficult for La Rochelle to stop Leinster and stop their momentum and flow. The performance Saturday was sublime. It was probably one of the best I've seen from Leinster in the competition against a very strong Toulouse side that were really disappointing for me. Leinster made them look really bad, and it kind of showed the fitness levels, the cohesion, the probably the execution and the ability to play under pressure. And Toulouse really struggled with that. You know, Leinster's ruck speed was, I think, 42% of the time was under 2 seconds, which is, it's impossible to get your defensive line set. And they just look so comfortable, confident and connected in everything they're doing. So I don't think they have much to worry about. I think everything is falling into place perfectly for them. You know, if you go back a couple of weeks ago and see all the internationals that stayed home from South Africa, there was criticism from some, particularly in South Africa, that they were disrespecting the URC. And obviously the teams they sent out there got 2 losing bonus points, guaranteed them top place in the URC. So the planning has been meticulous and it's working out perfect. You know, you go to Leicester and you score 20, you're 20 points up against the champions of England. It shows where Leinster are at, how good they are and how controlled they are in the way they want to play. And everybody seems to be on the same page. So, yeah, they're firm favourites going to that final. But you never know in a final. I think everybody's thinking it's going to be a very, very tall order for La Rochelle to stop them. But knowing Rog, he'll be trying to believe and trying to get his players right. And they have the ability to probably mix it with Leinster. But on the basis of what we've seen, it's going to be very hard to stop them.
That point you made about the ruck speed, and I heard you make it in commentary on the radio on Saturday as well, is interesting, because there's a parallel obviously between that from Leinster's perspective and what Ireland did in the Six Nations, because I remember we did like a statistical piece midway through the Six Nations where Ireland were ranked number 1 for ruck speed and I think France were number 3, and obviously, despite that, Ireland did end up looking second best compared to France in the Six Nations. I know it's very different Leinster against Toulouse. It's not Ireland against France. But did you notice any sort of differences that made the ruck speed even more important in the Champions Cup at the weekend compared to the Six Nations?
It wasn't just the ruck. The ruck speed obviously is a huge advantage to them on, and for any team. If the ball is coming back that quick, you can get the ball in your hands when you're outside that breakdown. You can run hard with it. You can make decisions. You can exploit the defensive uncertainty and of the opposition. So, but also I think they kicked really tactically well. They didn't just thump the ball out into the stands. They kicked it long. They forced Toulouse to come back and invited them to counter-attack. And Ramos and Labelle got caught a few times, and Leinster turned the ball over, I think. So I think the difference between what we saw on Saturday and in France was the French team obviously controlled the tempo of the game much better in Paris in that loss back in the Six Nations. And that's what Toulouse were trying to do and hoping to do the other day. They're probably not, they don't look that comfortable with having to keep the ball in play for long periods of time. They're very, very dangerous and incredibly athletic side, and lots of comparisons with France. But France did it so much better in Paris. They struck when they had to at different moments, and then they frustrated Ireland. Ireland obviously had that golden patch after half time where the ruck speed was really quick, and they scored 2 tries, and they got loads of width in their game, and they looked like they were going to come back and win the game. I just think Leinster have got better, and obviously 7 of those forwards would have been playing for Ireland. Their carries, dynamic carries, guys running off the shoulder, the timing of holding up defenders, all that kind of stuff is just, they've taken it to another level, and they're playing with this high tempo and high speed that is very, very difficult to defend against. So if Will Skelton comes back for La Rochelle, maybe he'll cause some problems. He's been out with a calf injury for a few weeks, and of course La Rochelle have some very powerful forwards. Antonio, Priso, Bougarique, the front row, very, very strong. Piquet in the second row is a very good player, but I just think they're lacking a small little bit of power that they had last year. Obviously, it's very hard to replace Skelton, and Aldred and Beto and Liebenberg, very good back rowers, but just to get the overall performance and get to that level,
are you hearing any
challenge for Leinster?
Are you hearing any gossip about Will Skelton from any well-placed sources you might have? Anything? Any texts flying back and forth about Skelton, maybe?
I don't know if he's going to be back now. I was asking probably last week, would he make the semi-final, and it was doubtful. But there was a small chance, so maybe there's a better chance for Saturday week. But still, I don't know if he's a different type of player, isn't he, Ger? He's one of those guys, if he's not training, he kind of puts on weight and maybe loses that bit of fitness. So you can't just risk putting a guy in. If he's fit and conditioned and doing loads of fitness work and conditioning with the injury away from the rugby fields, maybe. But I didn't press it too much for this weekend, but I will during the week to see if he will make it. But I think they'll probably be planning without him now at this stage. But Leinster, I don't know, would it be positive if he's fit and conditioned well? I think, yeah, obviously he's such a great player and he may cause Leinster problems. But it's kind of hard judging the 2 matches, isn't it? Because you have one where you have this brilliant performance, and then the other where it's a dogfight. And La Rochelle Racing yesterday was a really poor game to watch at times. There was a lot of intensity and a lot of fight at the breakdown.
But semi-finals are for winning, isn't that it? And sometimes
yeah, this is it, yeah. And they'll probably be, Roger probably be happy now that people are writing them off, and that's. But ultimately, they would have to get a lot right and really get into Leinster's faces. And it's very hard to beat a team when they're getting that sort of ruck speed. So the obvious one to do is try and slow their game down and be really physical with them, go after their set piece. So that would probably be the the goal for La Rochelle, and they have some very good players. There's no doubt about it.
Well, one of the things that I definitely felt was in Leinster's favour this year against Toulouse was the fact that everybody was fit. Basically, they had largely a full deck to pick from. That might not be the case for the final. It's possible Ronan Kelleher is injured and isn't back. It's possible James Lowe is injured. It's possible Tyke Furlong is injured, and all three of them will have doubts out over them at least over the next week. And that's just the stuff that we know, as opposed to the stuff actually in the changing room where there are other bodies that are particularly bruised after that encounter. That suddenly swings things back, where the set piece is absolutely not guaranteed, where you don't have that left boot, which was unbelievable in the game yesterday from Leinster. I definitely felt like James Lowe was another contender for man of the match. Not to say that Johnny Sexton didn't deserve it, because that was as good a performance from Sexton as we've seen in a long time. So a lot can happen between now and kick-off to make the game more even, and it's a cup final. Leinster are 12-point favourites, which seems a little bit ridiculous this early on.
I don't think it's ridiculous, Ger. I think they scored 89 points, I think, against a weakened Montpellier back in January. Any team that can score 89 points in Europe against any team have to be contenders. And I think they've shown glimpses of, in the early part, well, they've shown their quality throughout the season to be able to compete in both fronts. Really interestingly, and I didn't probably realise this, I knew Johnny Sexton hadn't played that many games this season, but Ugo Mola, the Toulouse coach, is talking after the game saying, well, you've one player, they swapped jerseys, Sexton and Intimac. One player is 36, the other is 23. One player has played started 27 games this season, and the other player has started 12. Now, Johnny Sexton has been involved 15 times with Leinster, 15 games this season. 2 off the bench, I think, with Leinster, and 1 off the bench with Ireland. So he's been involved in 15 games, Intimac in 27. So he was making the point, and it is a fact. La Rochelle have got to go and play next week. They're 7th in the league. There's very little separating kind of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the top 14. They've got Stade Francais next weekend. They have to win that game. So he's probably to put out a very, very strong side. Leinster can rest and heal those bumps and bruises that maybe you're talking about, because there's always a few. But obviously, if Kelleher, Furlong and James Lowe weren't going to play or weren't going to be involved, it would be massive loss to any team. But they have that strength and depth, don't they? And I think what swings it a little bit for La Rochelle is it's on in Marseille. There's probably 11 players at the 23. I think there is 11 players at the 23 who haven't been involved in the European final before for Leinster. So will that be a factor? The fact that it's on in Marseille, I don't think so. I think they're just the rugby they're playing and the confidence they're showing looks like a really daunting proposition for La Rochelle. But going back to the very first question you asked me, Rog will analyse them, and they'll try and come up with a structure and a plan. And they have some quality players, absolutely themselves. They have probably, and we saw it yesterday, Ohio West missed 3 easy kicks. If you're going to beat Leinster, if La Rochelle have any chance of beating Leinster, I think it's not going to be by 10 or 15 points. It's by, if they were to get in that position to make it a very tight game, it could come down to place kicks. And I think that's where it's a worry and a concern for him as well. But he loved the fact that people are writing him off. He'd probably be I'm not completely writing him off, but it'll make him kind of tetchy and narky, and
we're looking forward to talking to him this weekend.
Yeah, it will. Like, look, I'm not sure he gave much away, and look, the reality is without we know how good Leinster are, and that performance at the weekend, I think Toulouse were blown away by the ball and play time, the power game of Leinster, the meters gained, the tactical kicking, everything.
It all worked out.
Nearly perfect, and you have to applaud him for that.
All right, we got to go. Alan, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, thanks, lads.
13 minutes past 9. HC says, I don't buy Leinster being well rested. Last year was all about being undercooked as a weakness. This year it's their strength because they're winning. Both sides have their challenges to navigate. And MOC, he spots a Munster plot here. Is Quinny piling more pressure on Leinster by saying, they can't lose, miles ahead of La Rochelle. Hard to see how La Rochelle can win. It's a final, anything can happen, including crazy red cards. That would be, the main thing is red cards and self-inflicted injuries. That would be the main problem from Leinster's perspective.
Yeah, but it does feel like there's going to be a red card given to a team in Europe at the moment. Leinster are almost like very unlikely to get it. They have everything, including discipline, nailed down.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. To celebrate the fact we're bringing the football pod on the road, we're giving you the chance to win 2 tickets to join Tommy, Paddy and James O'Donoghue and special guests at the Royal Theatre in Castlebar. All you got to do to give it a chance to win is tell us who this mystery GAA voice is.
Jesus Christ, they don't even care about it properly. Or they're not giving it the respect.
Comment with your answer on our live YouTube stream right now, or tag us with your answer on Twitter at OffTheBallAM. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you today. Inside Porrick Harrington's gaff at 1 o'clock. Harrington's crib. Splonk Sport at 3. Mount Rushmore's Donegal at 4. Donegal's Lucchini at 6. It's Donegal special today on OTB Live tonight from 7 with Joe and the rest of them. You can follow Off the Ball across our social platforms. Make sure you get the app. Anthony Moyles is next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery. What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance plc.
Paddy, I go, what? It was Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
We'll do the hurling on tomorrow's show. Today we're doing Gaelic football. Anthony Moyles is with us. Owen said, I'm sorry for your trouble when you walked in and you went, I'm not happy. What has you? How are you feeling?
I'm not feeling good.
Lie back on the couch here and reveal all.
I don't know if we've enough time. Honestly, we'll have to go for an extension. Yeah. Where do I start? My wife was away for the weekend playing basketball, so I had my 2 girls, 7 and 5, and I bigged up the game probably early doors last week, you know.
Oh, you're living in Meath now. You used to live in Dublin, so what colour jerseys are they wearing?
Oh, no, they were wearing, one had an old Manoli Holmes that I signed for a niece of mine, and got the whole team, so that was well worn, shall we say. Oh, they were kitted out, they had the shorts, the hats, everything, rolling on. Looking forward to it. One was a big sell. I had to promise her plenty of chocolate and various things, and a hot dog at half time. So that got me over the hesitation, shall we say, because all she kept saying to me was, Dad, the boys are going to get hammered. The girls will win, but the boys won't. So
turns out she knows more about football than we do.
I should have just stopped right there and cut the grass for the day. But no, I pushed on, and in we went. Surprisingly little traffic. In we went into the game, and I got there. I said I'll risk it. You know these things, Ger. There's a short window of concentration. So I said I'll get a bit of the Kildare Westmeath game, which I got a bit more of than I expected. So anyway, the promise was. Went in, the atmosphere, and I know you guys have been talking about it, the Kildare Westmeath game, you know, although there was actually 5 or 6 points in it, but it was done, you know. Never looked like Westmeath were ever going to get the required scores to come back. And there was just this sense of inevitability, and let's not even go there on the Meath game, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so anyway, I decided, listen, let's try get them going here. So the hot dog was requested very, very quickly. So I said, right, this is a bit risky. Will I try the hot dog before now or half time? Went downstairs. This is our national stadium, of course, so I thought, won't be an issue. You know, there's only 30-odd thousand people here. And it's not like this is a surprise. They were expecting 2,000. But there was no hot food. Zero. No hot dogs. Hardly any chips.
They sold out?
Nothing. Yeah. What? Yeah. So this young girl, not her fault, of course, about 15 years of age, and I said, no hot dogs. My 2 girls beside me, forlornly looking up at me with big puppy dog eyes.
You promised.
I promised.
It's your fault.
So I got past with a packet of wine gums and a packet of crisps.
Right.
Not too bad. And the promise was, half-time in the big game, we'll have one. Anyway, down 5 minutes before half-time, said I'd beat the traffic, get down early. No hot food whatsoever. The plant-based burgers, which were going for €7, by the way, the plant-based burgers, even they were gone. So not an absolute thing. I took a picture of it. Like, I actually couldn't believe it. I said to the girl, I said, there's actually no hot food in this whole place. She's like, no, sorry, we're out of everything. I was like, that's amazing. I said, absolutely amazing. I said, an ice cream. I said, we'll have an ice cream. The girls, ice cream, this was true to tears. No, we've no ice creams left. I was like, okay. What have you got? Pints of Guinness, pint of Heineken. Like, unfortunately, no. Although I would have taken about 10 of them at that stage because the stress levels were that high. So, needless to say, the day went from bad to worse.
You've seen the Michael Douglas film Falling Down, have you?
Yes, it was one of those moments. You saying breakfast is over? So, but I just started thinking about the whole kind of thing. I can't believe GAA and Croke Park, whoever has the contract, I'm just amazed that, you go to our national stadium on a big, big day, 30-something thousand people, and you manage to run out of food in the thing. Like, it wasn't, like, it's not, as I said, it wasn't like a surprise.
What if there were 60,000 there,
Yeah, and I'm just kind of, the atmosphere of the thing. Like, you were in there on, like, it was absolutely, like, before there was a minute silence, absolutely perfect. Yeah, fine, 100%. Then you have there was actually a bit of applause, and then you go straight into the national anthem. And there was not even, I used to kind of give out about this loud music being pumped over the tannoy, but there was absolutely nothing. It was so dead. It was so dead. It was like being at a morgue. And there was this air of inevitability about the game as soon as it started. Like, I looked down at the 2 girls, and I have to say, I felt sorry for them. I felt sorry for kids around me. Dublin and Meath kids, that it was just, this is something you're being dragged to by your parents for 4 hours, and it is zero fun. It is nothing. There's nothing on display. There's nothing going on. There's nothing at half time to get enthused about. There's no sense of spectacle, no sense of atmosphere. And it's expensive. Like, we got 2 little punnets of chips eventually because I stayed down for about 10 minutes after, and eventually they must have got the deep fat fryer going and threw in the old McCain chips, and I think they were €5 a punnet. Like, for people going out with a clatter of kids, it's an expensive day out. And then even ordering the tickets, I had to pay 3 adult tickets because I wanted to sit in the Hogan. And the only tickets that you can buy online with family are in the Davin.
Right.
So you can't actually separate it out. So anyway, that was €90. Now, not that it's a massive deal, but, like, you're just kind of going, like, literally from the start, you're saying, come on, we can do this better. Surely we can do this better.
You'd think so. We could have had the games. I was saying home and away. So that game's in Navan, and the other game is in Mullingar, Athlone, wherever, like somewhere, right, where there's an opportunity for there to be an atmosphere and a bit of a home thing and local support. But instead it's in Croker. I don't know, obviously they feel like they need to get Croker back up and running after COVID, but it didn't make any sense, particularly because earlier in the year they'd said that maybe those games won't be, and that gave us all a little bit of hope that some progression had come into the thinking. And
yeah, and like, if you're talking about, so I'm 100% behind you on that front, and I know we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago about saying, right, take it out of Croker, pack a couple of places, because there is something magical about going to, a provincial town, it being kind of shut down for the day, and an unbelievable atmosphere with 15 or 20,000 people in it, or whatever it is. Croke Park is lost, so you can hear the players, like, you can hear them roaring at each other, you can hear there was a particular individual who obviously was on it early behind me, way up, and you could hear him roaring at different things, and it's just like there's cursing going on. There's just like, I mean, and you're just kind of going, this is just absolute disaster zone. But as I say, the fact of the matter is, this thing of, you know, like I feel for Meath, I feel for lots of teams in Leinster, because you're coming up against the juggernaut that is Dublin, right? There, before the grace of God, a lot of other counties don't come up against them every single year, right? And this is doing Meath, Kildare, whoever else that meets them, absolutely zero good. It's doing the counties zero good. It's doing Leinster zero good.
But the players all want to play games in Croke Park.
Correct,
it's
but
their
this
dream.
Exactly. So this idea of, oh well, we have to hold on to the provincials because, you know, the history and all that. This is killing football. It's absolutely killing football, and it's killing. Like, if I was a kid there and I'm 7 or 10 or 15 or 12, and a good pal of mine was there with his young lads. They play with Dunsany, good, really good players. I'm kind of looking at them. They're looking at their heroes getting an absolute whooping, right? And this is not the first time. And they're kind of saying to themselves, well, you know what, I play a bit of basketball and I do swimming or I do athletics, and, you know, is this what I'm aspiring to out here? You know, and I'm saying to the girls driving home, listen, the supporters is about being there in the good days and the bad days, all that kind of stuff. But it's not doing the sport any good at all. Now, that's not to say that, you know, Dublin have to do what they have to do, and Meath were pretty abject on the day, and we can get into that again. But at the same time, it is doing, as I said, the sport absolutely no good. It's doing the counties no good, because, like, I thought Meath were advancing a bit after last year, and I'm saying there's a lot of good work being done, there's a lot of good work being in the county, but where does that put you now? Like, imagine you're there given 7 nights of your free time in the assistance of Meath football, and then this is the fruits of the labour that you see after 3 or 4 years. Whether you're at the under-16s, the minors, the 20s, this is what you're looking at, and you're just kind of going, oh my God. Like, we were chatting on Friday, Nigel Crawford was on the thing, and he was telling me his young lad, Nigel lives up in Rathfarnham, and his lad plays with, I think, Ballyboden. He's under 10, I think, or under 11s. There were 6 teams. So he was one of 3 teams playing on one pitch, and there was another 3 teams playing on another. So there was 6 teams of under 10 or under 12s. That's 6 15s with substitutes at that age. So, like, that is the reality. That's one club team, which has a pick of about 70 or 80 kids. You know, sorry, more. You know, coming through. And you're in a situation, like, I mean, that even big clubs in Meath, the Ratotes, the Dunamore Ashburns, the Dunshaughlins, the Navan O'Mahony's, the Simonstowns, they might only have 1 team, maybe maximum 2 teams at that age. So you have 6 versus 2. So, like, the odds are you're going to get more talent from the 6.
Can I just make a point on that as well? And to look at it from the complete opposite perspective on that, Anthony, which kind of backs up your point about the whole promotion of the games. So I was just kind of thinking about this over the last couple of days. If you look at Gaelic football as like this marketable thing, who are your biggest stars in Gaelic football? Let's say Dublin's biggest star right now is Brian Fenton or Conor O'Callaghan, the most marketable people for one of the more marketable counties. And you've got a 5.5-month window with which to use these people between the start of February and the middle of July now, let's not forget. You look to go back, and if you look at the window between, I think it was the 25th of March when they got relegated by Monaghan, and the 25th of June when they will play an All-Ireland quarter-final. They will have played a game of no consequence. Now, maybe Kildare will put it up against them in the Leinster final. A game of 0 consequence. The weather's been good. The hurlers are getting great exposure. They'll have played a Leinster championship in that window. To hammer that home even more, David Clifford, the most marketable person in Munster right now, he'll have played 2 games in 12 weeks between the league final and an All-Ireland quarter-final against Cork and against Limerick. Like, this is just such a waste of time. You've got this massive tranche of weeks going by where these lads are playing A versus B games in training. Like, Brian Fenton is playing against Tom Lahiff behind closed doors more than he's playing against any other top midfielder in the country. David Clifford is being marked by Tom O'Sullivan more than he's being marked by any top defender.
If it wasn't for SuperValue pushing Clifford and O'Hora into the public domain last week, we wouldn't have heard anything or thought about David Clifford, really. It would have
missed the league. I missed the pissing rain in Tralee watching these games.
Good defenders, yeah.
Well, you miss the standard. You miss the competition at a required level and at the requisite level of where you are, and that's all that you're looking for. That's why every single pretty much sport in the world has divisions. Like, I mean, you are at this level. Yes,
the
we're at this level.
The GAA have it at club level.
Exactly.
They understand that, like, people would stop coming to the clubs if the if the competition was as bad as the senior intercounty competition. They would stop going. They would have no interest in it.
Of course they would, absolutely. And why do people keep going in the clubs? Because there's always a feeling that particular year we're going to do it. We've got Jimmy in, who's the new manager, or the young lad has come up and he's kicking the lights out. Whatever. There's always
we're
hope.
Playing teams of a similar standard.
Yesterday for me, the hope was literally. Whatever hope was there, it was extinguished, and it was absolutely extinguished. And I'm genuinely worried about, like, I don't think Kildare. I hope they do. I genuinely hope they do put up a fight, but I'm scared at what could happen there, because Dublin are. We've spoken about this till the cows come home during the league. They've never gone away. No. Last year was an absolute blip. It was a misnomer. Like, I mean, they are there.
Even then, they nearly got into the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, last year could have been a sup to kind of say, listen, lads, the county might get split up. We might give it All-Ireland to someone because we're going to win the next 10 anyway. Like, genuinely, bar Kerry, literally bar Kerry, because I was a little bit disappointed with Derry, and again, we can get into that yesterday. Like, they're just light years ahead. And it's a numbers game. It is a numbers game at the end of the day. And when I give that a pure example of 6 teams of 15, so that's 90, and then you throw in whatever else you've got. Is that 90? Yeah, it is.
Is there a possibility they're not playing 15 aside? Because I know our under 10s, under 11s are actually they're more 9 aside, 10 aside games.
Even if
but
they're
whatever,
10 aside, there's still 80 or 90 kids, relative.
And that's just 1 year. It's not actually
correct.
12s. They'll have an under 10s, 11s, and 12s.
It's I think the GAA, whether it's the lack of hot dogs at half time, right, or whether it's the Tailteann Cup, this idea of splitting it north south, like, come on, seriously. It's not like we're living in America. We're not living on a landmass that it takes you 55 hours to go from one end to the other. You get on a bus, drive an extra bit of an hour on the bus and get to where you need to go. Like, if I was the northern teams, I'd be saying, well, Ulster's probably meant to be one of the strongest provincials, and yet now you're sticking us in the same thing and you're going to wither us away. Let us play some of the lads down south. We want to play the teams in Munster, we want to play the teams in Leinster, but actually no lads, you can have it again. You can do your Ulster Championship again and see how you get on. Like that again for me is a kind of a thing of, you had an opportunity to do something and you managed to put a little subline in there somewhere, which kind of caught everyone. Like, I heard Tomás O'Shea last week. It has.
They weren't sure if they were north or south. They obviously would have depended on the number of teams who came through. So, like,
yeah. Anyway,
this
ranting.
Let me. This might provoke another rant from you. Shane says, Anthony, Meath football is in a shambles. They have regressed in the past 10 years due to poor management at board and county level. It's of Meath's own doing.
Oh yeah. Like, if the company is, to bring a business sense in this, the company is continually making a loss and you can't get any kind of decent results, you would have to say, let's have a look at the board and the executive, right? Yeah. That's it. The employees will come and go, which it is. The playing employees and the guys who are out there will come and go. There was some success. There has been some success in the last number of years with minors and under 20s. The transition of it into the senior team, it was looked at, because I know I was giving out about this last year, whereby fellas were playing to kind of under 17 and then they were kind of being just let back to their clubs. So there has been a pathway developed which has kept them true to hopefully developing them into the senior team. I think, does it need a major overhaul? They have been trying to make major overhauls. I know they're in the process of making major overhauls, and these things just don't change overnight.
I do think part of it is chicken and egg, where really good people who would like to get involved don't get involved because they see the game is stacked, and so therefore, and that's not to say that the county doesn't deserve to take some of the blame for what's happened. There is a big population in Meath, there's a big population in Kildare. Kildare have eventually gotten some of their house in order, and they're getting more of their house in order, and they seem to have more of the right people involved now, and maybe that's about to happen in Meath too, I don't know, but they need to take some responsibility for what happened. But the game is rigged, and so therefore a lot of people who would be interested in getting involved, a lot of corporates who would be interested in spending money are like, well, what do we get? We get hammered by the Dubs.
The game is rigged, but to counteract that, because things will just change. They'll stay the same unless you change them, right? So you have to first of all, if you're going to a corporate to try and bring them on, you have to obviously realise the elephant in the room, which is Dublin, right? There you are, the the big boy. So you have to say, listen, yes, there is that potential of every single time in Leinster, but I tell you what we're going to do. We are trying to make incremental changes here. These are our key performance indicators. You want to use all that old speak, right? These are the things that we're trying to get. And even so far as that you're then trying to pull people in because you're giving them a vision of 10 years or whatever it is. And I know that's, people can throw that out, but I think I'd say I'll go back 10 years and I was talking about the same thing. So we could be 10 years hence now, by the way. Could there be, like, even when you look at the performance yesterday, I'm sure the management team yesterday had certain things, because if you get caught up in the result of a big game and the result playing against Dublin, you're 99% of the way of it, you're going to have a failure, right? So the day is going to seem like a failure to you if you do not win. But yet, if you're like Cork versus Kerry a couple of weeks ago, they'll say to themselves, right, we're being written off here completely. Like, no one's given us an opportunity. So what we're going to do is we have areas that we need to look at. We have tackle rate in the first half, turnover, and many times we keep them down to a certain amount of shots. We look at how many times we can turn the ball over, how many kickouts we win, whatever those little statistics are in each game, and then you go and you try to execute. Where are Cork now? Cork are probably saying to themselves, actually, you know what, this is something we can build on. Like, I mean, teams have been in themselves, could we get to 60 minutes next year against Kerry? And in 2 or 3 years' time, can we get to 70 minutes against Kerry and actually really start to... That's their... So they're looking ahead. Meath, I think, after yesterday, are probably looking backwards now, saying, well, where are we again? That question mark over, where are we? Everyone will say it. Who's to blame? Well, everyone is to blame. Yeah. You know, I'm to blame. Like, I mean, literally everyone is to blame. No one is shy of failure in this. And blaming, say, Andy McEntee or the management team, or indeed the players, it's, you know, yes, there's some players who hid yesterday. Yes, there's some players who looked, I think, at that Dublin team, and it was kind of a la the Mike Tyson situation that as soon as Tyson used to walk into the ring, fellas used to nearly just fall over because they were like, I'm bet.
And last year was supposed to be the end of that. Like, that was the whole point. And the league was supposed to be the beginning of the end of this. But actually, like we were saying earlier, their generational players look lean and fit and hungry and rested in some instances and ready to go. Like mad for road again to remind us all that they were the greatest team of all time, and that just because some of them are gone, they're still here.
Mad for road. Yeah.
The power rankings, obviously, are Dublin ahead of Kerry in your head now? Right, like the All Ireland finals tomorrow, everybody we think is available fit for both teams. Who are favourites?
Oh, it's very tight. It's very tight. Like it's massively come in, and what's come in is, I think Meath butchered a couple of chances that they had. I thought they could have been a bit more expansive. I actually got a decent enough view of the game where it was, and there were runs being made, and there was a couple of times where it was 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 in the full forward line, and the fellas just didn't receive the ball. Desi has obviously decided, you know what, I can trust Mick Fitzsimons with my life, in the sense of against one-on-one situations. And if you remember Morris's chance in the first half where he kind of ended up just dribbling it wide. He slipped first of all when he initially got the ball, but Fitzsimons' defending was absolutely brilliant. He stayed on his feet, he pushed him out to his right foot because he knew he was predominantly left-footed. So when you have players and when you have the belief in that, you're happy enough to do that, and it obviously means that they can push more forward. They were scoring at will yesterday, like pretty much. You know, I don't think a Meath lad got a hit on. So that's again chicken and eggs type situation, Jer. Was it because they had just so much fluidity in that forward line, fellas running at pace, off angles, able to put balls into the spaces that they want, really intensive running, like savagely. Like Costello had an unbelievable game yesterday. Every time he got the ball, he just thought, right, I'm taking you on and I'm going for it.
There's a chance he's peaking, like because he's been around for so long. He burst on the scene as a teenager and never quite got to the point where he was going to be the star, but now there's a chance he's the star, and actually at 28 we might be about to see the best of him as well. Like,
yeah, you could be. Like, again, you know, and I caveat all of this with, you know, the fear thing is a big thing, right? The fear thing is a big thing. And I've talked about the Mike Tyson thing. And Meath aren't alone in this. And Kildare, to have an opportunity against Dublin, can't have that. They have to decide. Like, if I'm a cornerback and I'm marking Costello, I'm standing in front of Costello. I'm saying, listen, if you want that ball, you're going to have to get out by me and do everything you can to get that. I'm just taking a chance. I might get caught a couple of times in behind, but I'm actually showing, and I'm even in my own psychology, in my own head, I'm saying that I'm willing to take this chance against you, because like standing behind, trying to hope that you get balls off them, trying to hope that it's not going to happen.
I mean, there's a chance that Kildare score 2-16 against the Dubs, but there's a chance the Dubs score 4-24 in the same game, and it's like a crazy shootout. We'll come back to that because we have a couple of weeks. But we've got about a minute left here. Derry and the job that's been happening over the last couple of years. They're going to be licking their chops ahead of the Ulster final. So there's room for improvement, it sounds like, you think?
I think there is room for improvement. I thought Monaghan will probably leave that game feeling, the first half I thought they kicked a lot of bad wides, Monaghan. Now, they were under pressure. Derry have an unbelievably strong defensive system. Passing players on, keeping a core amount of players in the right area, fellas with different matchups, they don't get caught. They have two unbelievable generals in there with McKay and Rogers, right? So like McKay is like, listen, give me anyone, I'll look after it. And the communication that they have, Lynch steps up as the goalkeeper and directs an awful lot of stuff, so they keep you out of that exclusion zone, and they say, listen, if you're going to kick them, you're kicking them from way out. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. And it was kind of writing on the walls early in the game when McManus kicked one, if you remember, that he would normally get, and he just kind of pulled it. You're kind of saying, but they weren't. Monaghan showed a way, though, I think, of defending against them, which other teams, and probably Donegal will certainly say, okay, this is an area where we can hurt them, because I thought they got lucky a couple of times in some of the opportunities. They still deserve to win it, but when they got to within 3, Monaghan still had the pressure on. They kicked a couple of bad wides, and then they got caught badly just for the next goal. They're moving well, and I think, as I said, with Glass was imperious yesterday, absolutely, like just constantly moving, like perpetual motion, very, very strong around the middle of the field. McKinless didn't have as good a game as he had in the last day out, but they've a very, very, very strong spine, and they've got a savage amount of pace on the wings.
Is there something about this Rory Gallagher bounce that is oddly reminiscent of Jim McGuinness in 2012? Like, obviously there's a connection with him and Jim McGuinness, but it kind of feels like the game plan they have is kind of kryptonite for a lot of teams in Ulster. It just feels like, again, this is me getting completely carried away with just the raw emotion of Gallagher for 2 of the 3 goals yesterday. I'm just looking at like this momentum. I'm like, could this thing carry them all the way?
Yeah, well, there's probably half of that. It probably was himself and Banty's probably passed. So I'd say there was a bit of that jumping around, just to kind of say, right, well, I'm really sticking it to you here. He has endowed them with an unbelievable amount of confidence and belief, right? And he is that type of an individual, I'd say, in the sense of we're building the platform, and we're giving you the structure and the strategy, and if you just do what we're meant to do, we will get there. Obviously it's taken a while, but they can see forward momentum all the time. So when we go back to those things that you want in a game, although you might get bet, what do we want to achieve? They're doing all of those things on. So the belief is there between the players, between the management, and they're heading to the North Star, and they will deserve it, because they've had some serious games to get there. They're battle hardened.
They're not beating chumps,
No, absolutely not.
All right, we got to go for today. There'll be more, obviously, from the lads on the football pod. That'll drop at 6 a.m. tomorrow. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Our mystery voice was Kerry legend Tomas O'Shea. So Patrick Garrity correctly identified that, and he wins 2 tickets to see Tommy Rooney, Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue at the Royal Theatre, Castlebar, for the first ever football pod live. We're back tomorrow from 7:30. We'll have Sarah Donovan, Ireland International Louise Quinn, Premier League and PJ Championship chat with Nathan, and much more as well. In the meantime, here's Paddy and Billy Joe Padden. Paddy talking to Owen and Billy Joe talking to Aisling from the weekend. Enjoy.
Okay, there's going to be another Dublin against Kildare Leinster football semi-final. Kildare snuck past Meath in the end, but in the second game, Paddy Andrews, Dublin for a half at least were back to their brilliant best, it looked like, against Meath.
Yeah, look, it was very impressive from Dublin again. They've kicked on from 2 weeks ago in Wexford Park. I mean, they 30 shots, they scored 28 of them, 2 wides, 1 for Brian Fenton, 1 for Cormac Costello. Really, really efficient. It was Dublin back to what we kind of associated with them over the last 4 or 5 years, and they were dominant. They were so ruthless, shut down Meath all over the pitch, and were really slick up front. That cohesion is back in their attack. I thought their half back line was excellent today. James McCarthy, Brian Howard and John Small gave them the platform. For Meath, back to the drawing board now. I'm sure they're going to be frustrated after that defeat, but for Dublin it's onwards and upwards, and it should be a great Leinster final.
I was just chatting to Andy McEntee, and he's struggling to put his finger on why exactly there was such a gulf between them in the first half. Is it simply because maybe we got our expectations up about Dublin last year not being at that level, and last year was just simply well below the level that they can really get to?
Yeah, well, look, there's always a lot of focus on Dublin, particularly when after last season and obviously getting relegated in the spring. And there's no two ways about it. Dublin were poor in the spring. They're very porous defensively, and they weren't clicking up front. They were missing players through injury and things like that. But Dublin there was question marks over them, and there still is. But in terms of what we've seen today, their 2 championship games today, they've been so efficient up front. Conor O'Callaghan coming back, even though he was quiet today, gives Dublin a real focal point in attack. Kieran Kilkenny's back to his best, scoring 5 points from play today. And they're just their speed, their attacking game plan, and their physicality in defence, they really shut down the Meath forward line. So positive for them. But for Meath, into the qualifiers now, Jordan Morris with a red card at the end as well. He's probably the most dangerous forward. He's going to be missing in that game as well, just a lack of discipline at the end. So a frustrating day for Andy McEntee and Meath, no doubt.
Dublin conceded only 4 points last week or 2 weeks ago against Wexford, and that kind of, to me, was one of the more important statistics, because defensively that's where the questions were. Did you see a similar level of defensive prowess from Dublin today?
Yeah, they'll be frustrated with the penalty at the end, Michael Fitzsimons, because they would have wanted to keep a clean sheet. But Evan Comerford back in goal is a big plus. He gives that calmness to defence. His kick outs were excellent as well. But Johnny Cooper coming on and getting another 20 minutes at the end of the game just to kind of steady the ship and just brings that calmness and organisation. But it was impressive defensively from them. They're going to get a bigger test, obviously, against Kildare. Jimmy Hyland, Derek Irwin was excellent for Kildare today. Daniel Flynn. They'll ask question marks at that Dublin backline. But today, I thought John Small did brilliantly, and Killian O'Sullivan substituted without scoring. Michael Fitzsimons won his battle with Jordan Morris as well. So, and James McCarthy was back to his imperious best as well. So it was good from Dublin today, but they'll be tested a little bit more in 2 weeks' time.
How does James McCarthy still keep doing this? There's been absolutely zero drop off from him. Unbelievable. He was brilliant today. He got up and kicked 2 scores as well. That's like he came back late in the season, and he's a lot of miles on the clock. I think this is probably his 12th or 13th season with Dublin, so there was no real need for him to be playing in the spring. Just let him ease his way into the season, and you're seeing the benefits of that now for Desi Farrell and for James himself. He was brilliant today, and he'll be to the fore for Dublin in 2 weeks' time as well. What about that Dublin bench? Is there still a concern about the depth?
Well, look, Niall Scully came on for 20 minutes today. Johnny Cooper as well. Paddy Small, who was kind of Dublin need that depth coming in from their bench, and Paddy Small was actually injured, missed a lot of the National League as well. So for those 3 guys to get back in, I think they're going to be really pushing to start the next day. Davy Byrne, Robbie McDade are out injured. They're still to come back. So Dublin, they're in a strong position. They didn't pick up any other knocks today, so those 3 guys coming in off the bench today will be a positive, and then hopefully Robbie McDade and Davy Byrne can give more options as well in a couple of weeks' time.
I get the sense that you're not willing to put Dublin into the same category as Kerry just yet. Am I summing you up wrong there? It feels like you're holding back just a little bit on. You want to see them against a better team, I sense here.
Yeah, it's hard to get a read on them. Look, all we can go on is what we've seen from the season today, not just the last couple of weeks. And Kerry have been the standout team. They were dominant in the National League. They didn't set the world on fire against Cork in their game, but they did exactly what they needed to do. They're still the team to catch, the team to beat. For Dublin, it's definitely improvements from what we've seen in the National League, but it is hard to get a read because they played a Division 4 team and then a poor Meath team today. You'll start getting, I think you'll get a lot more answers in 2 weeks' time. Kildare will give a real test to that Dublin team. If they come through that with a performance like today, then you're definitely talking about them being right in the mix for All-Ireland honours. But what we've seen today, solid defensively again, and that efficiency up front. 28 scores out of 30 shots. That's some of the best shooting we've seen in the championship to date. So there's absolutely still a force, but overall, Kerry are probably rightly still favourites for the overall.
When it comes to this Leinster final, then I think everybody came here today expecting Kildare and Dublin to win quite handsomely. Kildare, though, it was only 3 points in the end. What do you put that down to? Because it did seem that a lot of the game they were in control, but not in control, if that makes any sense. Like Westmeath were always looking like they could carve them open at any moment. Yeah,
Kildare probably cruised through that game, to be fair. But the question mark over Kildare and what they're going to have to look at Glenn Ryan and his management team, they've conceded 2-15 today. As good, we know Kildare can score. Derek Irwin, I think 5 or 6 points today. Jimmy Hyland, Daniel Flynn. These guys are going to be able to score. At the back, they will need to tighten that up. Particularly, you see Dublin kicking into gear, Conor O'Callaghan coming back. that was the question marks around Kildare. They only scored 1 point in the last quarter. Even though they were in control of the game, they were always going to win it. They were comfortable. Probably didn't really get out of third gear, but they will definitely be looking to tighten up that defence, because conceding 2-15 to a Westmeath team that look, they're a Division 3 team, and I think that showed today. But Kildare, look, it's a positive win for them. They're back in a Leinster final, and they have that bit of momentum behind it, but there will be question marks over Kildare as well, and definitely areas they'll be looking at to improve in the Leinster final.
Are you worried at all as a Dub about what that full forward line for Kildare could expose the next day?
Yeah, of course. That's, like I say, it's a step up again, but they're the questions Dublin are going to have to answer. You know, in the National League, there's no two ways about it. Defensively, they were quite poor. They know that themselves. You can see they've clearly worked on it. They've got their personnel back as well, and it is going to be a test. If they can tie it up, if Mick Fitzsimons and Lee Gannon and Johnny Cooper and these guys can get a handle on that Kildare full forward line, Dublin will win the Leinster final. But that's a key battleground in that game, and it's a big test. But like I say, I thought their half-back line today for Dublin was excellent and gave that protection to Mick Fitzsimons and the guys in the full-back line. So look, I think it's going to be a fascinating game. It's a Leinster final everyone was hoping for. We got about 38,000 in here today. It wasn't a great atmosphere around it, but I expect a big crowd in 2 weeks' time for that Leinster final. And look, I think it'll be a great game.
A couple of words on the losers today then. Meath, first of all. Like, it does seem it's rinse and repeat a little bit when they come here to play Dublin at the moment, and then today I think probably exposes them as a team that maybe aren't actually going anywhere at the moment.
Look, it seems to have stalled. There's no two ways about it. Like I said, they put it up to Dublin, I suppose, in last year's semi-final. They didn't get promoted out of Division 2, and to be honest, they didn't really look like getting promoted. There was a clear gulf with Derry, Galway and Roscommon in Division 2 to the rest. So they're kind of stagnating. You're hoping that they get a big performance in the championship here today, and they didn't get that at all. Second half, look, there was a bit of fight about them in the second half, as you would have expected with an Andy McEnany team, but they're going to be right up against it in the qualifiers. Particularly, I think, the frustrating thing for them, Jordan Morris, their best forward, really, he's going to miss whoever he's going to be suspended for that game in the qualifiers. It's an uphill task for me. There's no real positives you can take out of that game, and that's the disappointing thing for the Meath supporters.
And then Jack Cooney, the Westmeath manager, was talking about how his players, or he expects them to all be around for the Tailteann Cup, and how he's excited for the Tailteann Cup and it's something that they can use to build on. These are the sort of messages we want to be hearing, right? Do you think that that's going to be something that prevails throughout these next few weeks as this new Tier 2 competition gets up and running?
Well, I hope so. Like, it hasn't got off to a great start with basically GAA changing the rules on it and dividing into north and south sections. I think it should be an open draw, but what you need the teams in it to take it seriously. You don't want guys, look, Down are obviously struggling, lots of guys are leaving their panel, they're not going to be at full strength, but you want the teams that are competing in that to take it seriously, and you'll see the benefits of it. Westmeath will go into that, they will be right in the mix to win that. They'll be favourites along with, I would say, probably Cavan and Tipperary. I would say the three top teams in that competition, but what you're hoping for is that kind of communication from managers and players, that they're ready for it, that they're excited to play it and that they want to play it, and just hope that the GAA structure it right and it gets the promotion and it gets the time and the airtime it deserves, because it could be a brilliant competition for some of those teams. And a team like Westmeath, like say with Jack Cooney, that's great message to hear that they're going to be right up for it, and they could go really far in that competition.
Yeah, absolutely. The Seagulls descending here in Croke Park. Not been a vintage day at headquarters, but it has finished where it's going to be a Dublin versus Kildare Leinster final for the second running year. Paddy Andrews, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Tom.
Billy Joe Padden, 3-12 to 17 points to Derry in the end here in the Athletic Grounds. An historic win really for Derry, and we could see the scenes here on the pitch afterwards and really what it meant.
It means a whole lot to the Derry supporters. They're lingering here on the pitch, enjoying every minute of it. The weather is beautiful as well, so they're, I suppose, having a great time reminiscing maybe about great Derry wins of the past. But this one goes right up there with all those important wins when they were going on to win Ulster and an All-Ireland title before. I think it's even more impressive that they back up a big performance against Tyrone and are able to come in here when they're not really, not so much an underdog, or definitely not a surprise package. And they back it up with maybe an even better performance. And that's hugely impressive, and that's something I know that their supporters are very proud of. And Monaghan supporters, having talked to them after the game, can have no complaints. Derry were the better team throughout. and it's just hugely impressive, and it should give them a lot of confidence. And I think it'll waken up a lot of the GAA public to say, well, you know what, Derry are a serious team. You kind of saw them in the National League doing some good things in Division 2, and you always knew they're improving. You maybe didn't think they were going to improve this quickly, but on the evidence of today and a couple of weeks ago, they're a force to be reckoned with.
And in that first half, they really came flying out of the blocks. You know, almost Monaghan didn't expect it. And I think it was 13 minutes before they really got on the scoreboard. You know, Derry were just too tough to really get by at that point.
Yeah, I think it was the intensity that they played with in that period. They were really intense. They got loads of bodies back and then created some great turnovers. Completely frustrated Monaghan. Monaghan, you know, there's a lot of talk about their talented forward line. There's no doubt it is talented in Mohan and McManus and McCarran. But like, they just didn't give them any space, bottled them up at every time. And the thing that really impressed me about the Derry performance in that first half was the counter-attack, because it was absolutely clinical. Whether it was McKinless driving down the field, turning inside Darren Hughes and blasting through the net. The second goal, another great counter-attack, totally different type of goal, long ball played in top. And I think it finds its way to Benny Hearn, and a real composed finish. You know, he had an open goal, easy one, but that was the most impressive thing about it, in that the way they broke out of that defensive shell and scored, and that's hugely important when you consider if you're a team that wants to get bodies back, and at times they'd full 15 players back inside their own 45 and they frustrated Monaghan, but if you can't attack and score out of that position, it's nearly useless to you, because all you're doing is drawing pressure upon yourself. They had some severe difficulties in both halves in terms of on their own kick out. Monaghan won an awful lot of possession, but it was just their ability to get everyone back. Such hard work rate to get everyone back and then tackle. And they showed pretty good discipline. All right, they gave away a lot of frees, but they didn't give away the goal chance. That's the key thing.
And every time they had an opportunity, they seemed to take it. Yes, they had a few wides, but not near as many as Monaghan, and I think that was the difference.
Yeah, and I didn't mention McGuigan as well, particularly in that first half. Like, he was absolutely clinical, got a mark, a couple of points from play, kicked his frees. I think it was even more evident in the second half when you look at Paul Cassidy got 2 excellent scores. I think they scored 1-5 in the second half. If they had 6 chances, that was probably it. 6 counterattacks. They created that. Maybe I think they had another chance that could have got a goal, but they were absolutely clinical in each attack. And, you know, Emmett Bradley comes on and runs practically half the length of the field and kicks the first point of the second half. So even though they were under severe pressure from Monaghan being really frantic, being really intense in that second half, not really showing the know-how in terms of creating those scoring chances, the impressive thing was Derry's ability, when they got the counter-attack and chance, to actually make it count. And, you know, it was, as I said, Cassidy with those scores, Emmett Bradley, and then the key goal as well. Again, Benny Hearn shows brilliant composure, lovely use of his hand to bounce the ball back away from the pressure, and it got a bit of deflection, but it found its way to the top corner. Great goal.
And that game plan you're talking about from Derry, you know, you need the fitness levels, and I was a bit worried coming into that second half, will they be able to keep this up now? And they absolutely were, you know, because it's not easy to go straight from defence to attack and to be clinical as well.
Yeah, and I think it was a lot of those power plays that they knew they'd be under pressure, but they knew that when they'd get the breakout, that they had to make it count, and it had to be. And I remember saying to you at one stage, Joel, that's a set-piece move from a kick-out when they're under pressure, where Conor McCluskey, you know, they find him in open space on the right wing, and he drives up the field. And it was a great save from Rory Beggan. It could have ended up in the back of the net, but he was fouled just before that, and it's a free, and McGuigan kicks it over the bar. That was a counter-attack that came all the way from their goalkeeper, and they made it absolutely count. It could have been 3 points, but they got at least 1 out of it. And that's hugely impressive, hugely impressive.
And McKinless, you mentioned him there, he was really impressive throughout the whole game. The first half goal was his, and I asked him just there, talk me through it, and he said, you know, we worked on that in training. It was very much straight from the training pitch to the pitch here today.
Well, he's shown that dynamic ability in the game against Tyrone as well, and, you know, it looks like we're going to see a lot more of it. He's a very talented player. But even aside from that, in the second half, there was a couple of times late in the second half where he might have drove 30 yards out of his own half, and I think at one of them he gave away a free, but it takes valuable seconds off the clock and just shows that he has that ability to break out of defence. And you think, a modern Gaelic footballer, how valuable is it to have a half-back that has that killer pace, that killer ball-carrying ability to drive it out of his own half, and he has that. So I think he's one of the most exciting players in this year's championship so far, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in an Ulster final.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, you know, I started full back, now I'm centre half back, who knows where I'll be, but he said, look, I'm just delighted to be out there and doing everything he can for the team.
And it's that ability that he has to break out of defence, and it's obvious, you know, Rory Gallagher has to get credit in that. If you're a defensive team, as I said, you have to be a good counter-attacking team. So he's obviously given McKinless, you know, McCluskey, even from cornerback, that licence when you break, don't be afraid to go all the way. And he did, and he no stopping, kept going all the way till he found himself in the penalty spot, and he rifled it home. And McCluskey the same way, a shot on goal from cornerback position. So that's about knowing how to counter-attack properly, and that no hesitation. Absolutely no hesitation in anything Derry did today, and that to me shows a team that's absolutely clear in their thinking, have a clear idea of what they want to do, and a well-coached team.
A lot of confidence and well coached. Rory Gallagher, we watched him here on the sideline. You're laughing. He was animated. He's always animated. It's nothing new, but it's just so entertaining to watch, isn't it? It's just pure passion.
It is. I thought Jurgen Klopp was famous for the fist pumps at the end of games, but at one stage there were 10 minutes to go. Rory was turning to the Derry supporters behind him, fist pumping, and it was great to see. I loved it, and I don't think there's any sort of thing where it's rubbing any supporters up the wrong way. It's just him showing how into the game he is, and he's totally into it. I was kind of watching, thinking, crikey, how is he so passionate and intense about it, yet has to keep a cool head to make the right decisions at the right time? But so far it's working out for him, so he's obviously able to compartmentalise those two things.
And I asked a few of the players there, Chrissy McKay, what the difference is over the last number of years. He's been around a long time in the Derry shirt, and he's finally getting these big wins. And he said 2 words: the management. Everybody's buying into what they're saying. You can see it out on the pitch. They're definitely buying into what they're saying. They're very clear on what the game plan is and what they want to do.
That's clearly obvious. When you get buy-in from the likes of Chrissy McCaig, who's great club footballer, a long time with Derry, then you have Brendan Rodgers as well. Both of them were outstanding today. Really helped and snuff out that talented Monaghan full forward line. And I think that's a really good example of how Rory Gallagher can communicate, because sometimes you don't always get those older players on board. It's easy sometimes to get an impressionable young player and get them in and to do all the things you want to do. But he's obviously got not only a game plan, a way of preparation that they're all buying into, they're all happy with.
AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.